and download Abata and Rale.
Oh gosh.
Abata and Rale.
Um,
Don't understand very well. Abata and Rale.
um,
Don't understand very well. Abata and Rale. Don't understand very well.
okay, so I think we have gotten the silence we need, and we can start. So the way we'll moderate this is this: if you have questions, you have to send your questions through the comments, and or you just raise up your hand. I mean, I can be able to allow you to, speak. So let's get this started. So yes, so guys, UI design is like super super simple. I think that's the first thing I want you to understand, right? Um, and what we'll be going through this class will be things about, an overview on UI UX design, UI principles, UI style guide, and the live session where we get to design together. Sheung is the co-host of this class, and he'll be like, he's streaking on your live. Remove jack off events. Okay, so I mean, it's going to be a little hard to manage all of this, but this happens a lot. Figma link is for the live session, so it's important if you are on Zoom or on YouTube for you to learn. And trust me, it's very hard to manage like lots of people trying to learn. And I would just believe that as much as possible, just try to focus, ignore all the noise, and we can always manage everyone we need to take out of different things. Oh gosh. Okay. All right. So if you need to, Shane will let me know if there's any other person we need to make co-host, and so we can manage this better. I will just close the chat so it doesn't distract what we are doing. So yeah, so concerning UI UX design, I mean, the very first thing I will let you understand is UI is what the user sees, right? Like I said, if you're looking at the screen right now, you are seeing you're seeing, you know, I mean, if you're taking on Zoom right now, at the bottom of Zoom, you can see mute button, you can see start video, security, participant, chats, poll quizzes. On the right of your screen, you can see people who are active on this meeting. And then within what you're seeing here, you're seeing a screen being shared, right? Everything you're seeing here as you are interacting in this product is the user interface, right? So every time you look at your phone, whatever screen you're seeing there, if you're looking at your Uber app and you're trying to order an Uber, what you're seeing there is a user interface. If you're on your home screen and you're trying to make a call, what you see on your screen is also a user interface. So practically every screen you're looking at on every app, you're looking at the user interface. Now, this definition will help you understand better what user experience is, because user experience is what the user feels when interacting with a product. So yeah, we have someone else who's playing with. So Zoom needs to do a lot of work in their experience because they need to be able to help people manage, situations like this. But I'm sure you guys can still see this. UX is what the user feels when interacting with a product or service. So when you look at Zoom, for example, right? I'm pretty sure this class has given us like an understanding of how people feel when using a product, right? Maybe this feature where people like just scramble stuff on the screen is not available on Google Meet. But the fact that this is happening on Zoom is affecting our user experience, is affecting the way we feel when using this product. The fact that we have people who are like trying to hijack the training, and people who are like writing in colors. I mean, this just shows user experience. If you give me 3 seconds, I'll try to figure out how to stop everyone from being able to write on the screen. And that should, yeah, that's done. And it's just sad because I can't even see how to stop everyone. Okay, disable annotation for others. Clear all drawings. So you see, this right here is also a challenge, right? If you click on the annotate function on Zoom, you should be able to see disable all as the host. I had to click on more. Can you guys see the more symbol on the more function? I had to go there to find, enable annotation or disable for others. So these are like very simple things that affect the way people think about products. And it's super, super important that as a UI UX designer, if you're building any product, you need to think about, different use cases. Before you add the annotate function, does everyone need to be able to annotate on a presentation? Should this be a feature only allowed for pro users? Should it be available to everyone, and only people who have like verified logins should be able to do this? These are the kind of things you think about as a UI designer when you're building a product. And this is super, super important because it actually guides how people would feel when interacting with the product or service. Now, the next thing here is think of UI as the visual elements of an app, right? Visual, what you can see, right? Every element you can see. Like I referenced, the fact that you can see comment section, you can see mute button, you can see start video, all of that is all part of the user interface, right? While UX is the reaction from using the app. I mean, right now we are using Zoom. Zoom has its functionality to be able to manage XYZ on an app. And it has some other things that you don't have control over. For example, if you really wanted a public, live session, there is also the pitfalls of, what happens within a live session, right? The reason this class is open and live is because I got lots of proposals from people saying, oh, host your class within our platform. But the worry is this, right? Zoom is a global company. Almost everybody understands how to use Zoom. Almost everyone understands how to use YouTube. And that's the whole angle for making this class on these two platforms, just so that it's a lot easier compared to you trying to log into a new platform to learn that new platform and also trying to learn UI design. So it's also intentional for us to have this class like very open. However, there's also that negative reaction from, all we've been trying to manage over the past 20 minutes to make sure the class is actually very good. And the next thing I'll talk about here is the different areas in UX design and UI design. So for UX design, you'll be seeing that the first thing I want you to understand here is UX design, or UI design rather, is a component of UX design. And what I mean by that is the way an app looks affects the way you feel when using the app, right? We use banking apps every day, to maybe transfer money, check your account balance, and all of that. And the fact that, there's a way this bank app looks affects the way you feel concerning the brand, right? You use Twitter, you use Instagram, you use Facebook. there are reasons people have to say, oh, I enjoy Twitter over Instagram and I enjoy Instagram over Facebook. Sometimes, when you listen to them, they tell you things like, oh, Facebook is too cluttered, or I don't just understand how to use Facebook. There's so many things I'm seeing on my screen at the same time and it's confusing, right? And these things affect the way the user feels. Remember, user interface is what the user sees when interacting with the app, and user experience is what the user feels when interacting with the app. So with the scope, UX here covers things like UX, user research, interaction, accessibility. User research is the fact that when you're conducting UX design, you need to research what users want. So for example, if you're building the next, let's imagine we are building the next Zoom or the next video chat or video meeting platform, right? Based on what has happened in the past 30 minutes in this class when we are trying to get things together, people just writing, people trying to take over the meeting, you now have, some kind of background research to be able to say, what is the best way to create a better video meeting platform? All that research you're doing, you would have to go across what is happening on Zoom, what is Google Meet doing better. You have to go through all of this to be able to, build a better platform. And that's user research. The next thing is interaction, right? In the interaction, you're thinking about what happens when they click this, when they click that, what happens, how do users cancel or create a new meeting and all of that. Accessibility here, and all of these concepts, most of them we get to touch on them, as we go on in this course. Accessibility is things like the fact that you can see my screen and it's very clear, that's actually accessibility. There are times when designers design and you're unable to read some certain text, or it looks too cluttered, or oh, I don't understand what is going on here. And that even sometimes it's just things around contrast. Is it even legible enough? Right? And these things actually matter a lot when you think about accessibility, because it affects the way user feels. Copywriting is also important, right? If you're using an app and you're trying to delete a new, let's say the same case study, right? The same case study is on making a new video app, right? For video meetings. Right now, there's a pencil tool at the bottom of your screen called Annotate, right? If people would easily understand that what I should have there is write, not annotate. If more people understand the term write, like WRITE, then that's a better copywriting to use or UX writing to use on the app. So a lot of times people use terms that are too complex for their end users or for the general market. You need to use like very simple terms so people can understand what you're trying to say without having to think too much. Wireframes are important because it's actually great when you sketch out what you're trying to build before you go on and start designing. Because if you start designing, there are things that you may not have considered, and it will take you much longer time to be able to edit your wireframes compared to if you've just done a simple sketch, right? Now, if you're to build a new video app, you can quickly just sketch and say, what I'll do differently is this. At the bottom of my video app, I would have only 3 tools, and those 3 tools is invite and share screen and advanced. And invite becomes, okay, I can easily find the invite link whenever I want to bring in someone into that meeting. Right now on Zoom, if you look at the bottom, all you can see is 500 participants. And I'm hoping that there's a lot more overflow on YouTube, right? But here, before you get and this is one UX problem I find with using Zoom, before you find the invite link, you have to click on participants, and then you're going through everyone, then you find invites before you can be able to get the invite link to be able to share to more people, right? Maybe there should be a different way of designing this, and all of those kind of stuff can only happen when you do like very simple wireframes before you prototype the idea. And here, what is happening here is, prototypes, designing prototypes are better after you've done a wireframe so that you can decide, the wireframe is like your quick sketch. I want to add this function here. I want this to look like this. I want just the way you scribble stuff, right? If anyone here is into fashion, the way you sketch out your outfit before you give it to, your fashion designer to, maybe make the outfits. Those are like wireframes. They're just sketches, right? Now, when whatever you're sketching is being designed to look more like the finished product, that's a prototype. And I'm hoping that these are not like very complex terms. These are very, very simple things. Um, so I'll just look at questions right now. Someone said, please be quiet. I don't think anyone is still talking now. So here is saying, if color does not form part of aesthetics, what are things that make up aesthetics for UI design? So beyond color, there are things like layout, right? I don't know how good my slides look, but most times I get feedback that, oh, Evans, your slides are very clean. You don't have too much of things on your screen. You kind of give breathing space and it adds to aesthetics. Sometimes it's actually the amount of shades that you have on your screen at the same time. Someone asked if we should log in on Figma. So the Figma session is actually when we get to the live session. All of this right now, as much as possible, just stay on Zoom, right? When we get to the live session of the class where we are designing a UI, designing the banking app, then we move to Figma. So as much as possible, just stay on Zoom. Thank you very much. So beyond these areas, so color is actually part of aesthetics, but I'm saying beyond color, there are other things that are part of aesthetics. So color is important. It's super, super important. Color helps you to, guide the user's attention, right? But I'm just saying that beyond color, there is layout, there is choice of fonts, there's choice of icons. All of these matter when it comes to aesthetics, right? However, aesthetics on its own too can be unique because the people who have things like shades, I understand your question here, right? Aesthetics is beauty, right? With beauty, it's relative. You can actually have the way people, if there are some UIs you will see and you see some kind of shade when you hover, you see this shade, or will I say drop shadows, right? These things are all part of aesthetics. It's the way it's done here on the slides. It's important to show color and aesthetics because colors here pertain to things like, the way your buttons are the colors on your buttons, the colors on your headline text. All of these different areas matter. So a quick review is on UX, you have user research, interaction, accessibility, copywriting, wireframes, prototyping, user testing. User testing is, you having your design in the hands of people. So you sending your designs out to possible customers and asking them to give you feedback on how they feel using the app before you even go building out your user interface, right? Persona here is that you understand the kind of person that will be using your app, your kind of customers, because you need to have like a mindset of who are the kind of customers I would have using this app, right? And when you understand that kind of customer, then you can now build precisely for them. Architecture here is referring to how you structure the application. When I click, if it's a banking app, when I log in, the first thing I should see is my account balance. I should click on a button that says, transfers to or pay to be able to pay someone. When I click pay, the next thing I want to see is select from your contacts who you want to pay, right? Or select from your beneficiaries who you want to pay. So architecture is actually how you structure the flow, more like a map, how the user goes through different parts of the journey to complete their goal, right? And on UI end, what we have there is things like the visual design, the overall visual design, the colors used, the general aesthetics, the amount of spacing you leave around elements in the layout itself, the choice of typography, the branding, where the branding covers logo and other components, and the kind of icons on that application. I think I said a lot of things, so I would ask if there's any question right now. Don't allow Evans to move to the next when he's not done explaining to us. Okay, that's fine. So one question here is why UI design? Why is UI design important? UI design is important to convert visitors into customers, to increase efficiency and accessibility, to increase customer brand relationship, to reduce customer support costs, to clarify product vision and advantage, and to eliminate confusion or any frustration. And I'll explain these things a bit, right? With very good UI design, if you find a new app today and that app looks so good, they can easily convert you from being someone who just saw them to someone who used them. For example, 4 years ago, no one was on TikTok, right? Or TikTok was very, very new. But a lot of times it's the way the app is structured, the kind of content on the UI design. So you open TikTok today and you see lots of different videos, right? Of different people, and you feel like, oh, these guys are having fun. I want to be part of this, right? The UI design, the way the app looks, influences people who just visit to eventually sign up and use that application. Now, the next thing here is UI design can increase efficiency and accessibility. Now, if you have an amazing UI design, it can actually increase efficiency. So for example, right now, we are using Zoom right now, right? And we can't find the button to share the link with a specific audience. We have to search for that link, right? If the UI design can be slightly improved, we can be able to find those links better because, for example, they are using a simpler icon or a simpler name for that link, simpler label. So for example, like just the way we suggested, think about if we have the annotate button and we called it write, WRITE. So since it's a pencil and then you want to have write, it makes more sense that people understand that with this I can write, because not everybody understands the term annotation, right? Now the next thing is to increase customer brand relationship. Now think of if you're designing the next health application, right? And when you log into this health application, the first thing the user sees is, how are you feeling today? Like that's what you see on your screen. How are you feeling today? And you put a smiley there. And the user can be able to type how they feel. And if they say they feel weak, the next screen that they see is what's making you feel weak, right? And all of these kind of things can be programmed because most times developers want to understand, they want to see what you're trying to design. With that design, they can be able to advise on what functionality is possible. But I'm trying to paint a mental picture here that a simple health app that asks you a question when you log in, and okay, because you logged in, remember when you sign up, most apps, it asks for your first name and your email address and you're logged in, right? It means that the app knows who you are. So imagine if you log into an app and the first thing it says is, hi, Koha, how are you feeling today? Right? Koha would feel much more, involved. He will feel much more cared for, right? Because he feels like, these guys care about me. And this is actually the little things that increases customer brand relationship. Because today, Koha is writing on this app that I feel weak because I had lots of work the previous day and a lot of fatigue. And the next thing is the app is suggesting, would you like to schedule to talk to a therapist? Right? That kind of app, Koha can be able to enjoy always using that app because, it's like his go-to hospital right on his phone. Right? Another thing is UI design can help to reduce customer service costs. Yes. So Ayomide just mentioned Facebook and what's on your mind. So you see, actually, I think Twitter also has what's on your mind. This kind of very tiny, and it's copywriting, but it's still sort of part of UI design because, most times the person who designed the UI needs to, add the right UX writing even before maybe a professional UX writer gets to evaluate what has been done. most times the UI designer needs to understand how users read these things. How do they understand these things? So the point about reducing customer support cost is when you have an app and it is so confusing to navigate or so confusing to use, trust me, a lot of customers will be contacting that company's customer support. And you will have so many complaints. Oh, I can't log in. Oh, I logged in, but I can't use the app. Oh, how do I delete the last thing I created? Or how can I edit? And the reasons they're asking these questions is not because the users really want to frustrate the company, it's because they are frustrated. They're not getting a good experience. And the truth is that more companies should actually listen to customers. Most times when I advise companies concerning how they build applications, I always tell them I believe that one designer or developer should sit with a customer service person in that company at least once a month so that you can listen to the complaints of the customers and improve the application. I can bet that of everyone in this call, maybe just 1% of everyone here today has contacted Instagram to say, my Instagram is not working. And it's just because, they take a lot of time to find how to improve the application so that over 4 billion people can be able to use it effectively. I mean, they will have customer service complaints, but it's not going to be as much as you would expect because it actually works. You know. Also, customer, yes, what Jasmine said is very correct. Customer complaints and reviews can be used as UX research. So for established companies, you find that you have lots of opportunities to even do better because if your app is already in the market and you are brought in as a new designer to just improve on that app, you can actually get a lot of insights from the current customers because from my recent research, I found that it's cheaper for a company to make more money from existing customers than finding new customers. So if you have existing customers who are giving you feedback, as much as possible, that is actually something you can leverage for better UX research. Um, I believe that I'm, making this very, very easy for everyone to understand. I'm trying to make it very, very simple. And I would look for that feedback to be sure that, it's very simple so far. The next thing here is UI design can help to clarify product vision and advantage. Now, product vision is actually what does the product set out to do in the world, right? As much as possible, if you use a very clean, you know, UI, and UI here is, user interface. If you use a very clean user interface, you can actually clarify the product's vision. So, for example, back to when I said a health app where you can be able to just say, the app tells you how you're feeling today, and you can enter, I feel weak and, a bit of fatigue, right? And then the app goes on to suggest that maybe you should speak to a health professional or speak to a therapist or do these 3 exercises so you can feel better. If that app goes on to say our vision is to help people live healthier lives, you can see that the UI design is helping to clarify that product's vision in the market. If that app says we are your personal hospital right on your phone, it means that that app today is helping people to feel more comfortable, to be able to get medical help right from their mobile device. So you see that point here about clarifying product vision and advantage can actually be driven with the UI design. So with a very good UI, you can actually clarify, to your customers what your vision is and why you are better off than your competitors in the market. Finally, I don't think I need to explain how UI design can eliminate confusion and frustration. Most people are confused about the apps out there. They are frustrated, and most of these companies are not even taking on feedback from existing customers. But also, the fact that this is a challenge is also an opportunity for new UI designers. So most times when I try to mentor UI designers, I tell them, take on a personal project every month. Take one app that frustrates you and, you know, ask yourself, if I'm to fix this app, what would I do differently for this app to be less frustrating? You know, and these are really important, you know. The next thing is design systems, right? A design system is a complete set of standards to manage design at scale using reusable components and patterns. And I'll show you guys what a design system looks like. So a design system is pretty much, imagine when you're creating an app and you have a defined set of buttons. So in this app I'm creating, this is how buttons will always look like. In this app I'm creating, this is what forms will look like. This is what icons will look like. This is how this is the kind of font we are using, and font is like the typography, right? This is what we are using this font. This is the sizes of the font we are using. A design system sort of puts all of these things together, even down to how the app would sound. So if we say our UX writing would have to sound smart, and we will always use very short text to explain things, that becomes like a design system, because this is like a lot of things put together, and all of these patterns are used to make sure the more you're creating more pages. So like the health app we're talking about, and I'm trying to use like real world examples, right? So even if we don't get to design the health app by designing the banking app, you sort of have an idea of what you are doing in the next design project you're taking on. And these slides are available after the class, so you can click on extra links within the slide and check out much more resources. But beyond all of these things being taught here, the best part is if I can teach you how to think about these things. As much as possible, use Google search and ask any question. If you hear a new terminology in design, and this is like for everyone who's a beginner here, just go out there and just search for it. There are so many resources online. The only challenge that I find when I research for these things is that some of them sound very technical. And that's why we are holding these classes. So just to make sure, we can break it down to the very simple way for people to actually grasp what it is. The next thing here is UI principles. So UI principles are like a set of guiding rules that help you to design better user interfaces, right? And there are about 8 rules here on these slides, and I'll start with the first 4. And like I said before we started the whole class, the very first thing I would say is think user first. As much as possible, the apps that focus on customers the most are the ones that win in the market. The apps that, have the simplest interface for their customers are the ones that eventually win. The next thing is you keep it simple, strive for clarity, and be consistent, right? And I would explain what think user first means. So think user first means you should talk to your potential users. Talk to your potential users, talk to your current users, talk to your future users. Talk to everyone that you feel can benefit from your app. I know there's that concept of people feeling like their ideas can get stolen, right? But as much as possible, try to talk to people, because there is much more value in getting insights from them before you start to design. When you talk to your customers, you can be able to, design to match their exact needs. For example, if people need a new banking app and the most important feature for them in that banking app is the ability to convert their US dollars to crypto, if that is the most important thing to them, it means that, if a banking app comes out today and says, we are a new bank, and right from your bank, you can convert all or some of your money to cryptocurrency within the same banking application. If they hear that is the most important feedback that people need, or the most important feature people need from the next banking tool, they would easily win customers, because they will be the first banking tool or the first banking app that allows you to automatically convert your money to cryptocurrency. right? Another thing that is important here in talking to potential users is where do you even find these potential users? A lot of feedback is hidden in customer support questions. If you go to forums, if you go to different app reviews and customer reviews for different apps that are in your industry. So, for example, you want to build a banking app or you want to design a banking app, you can actually go to 10 other different banking apps and check what customers are saying, check where they are frustrated about, check their reviews. Because a lot of learnings are hidden within those reviews. A lot of feedback that people don't look out for is right in there because the more you solve customer complaints through your design, the more you save money for the company where you're working at, and you can even use that to negotiate for a better salary because you can tell them that, listen, with the new UI I have checked and fewer customers have complained, which will save money on customer support. So as much as possible, talking to your users has way more benefits for anyone who is building an application. The next thing I would say here is ensure the UI is in the background and not obstructive. A lot of times, people design interfaces that distract the user from doing what they want to do. So, for example, as much as possible, if people open Twitter and they want to type, a new tweet, you realize how when you open Twitter, and most of these things will give you a new perspective, right? You open Twitter today, and what you see is a blue button that triggers you to actually tweet, right? But before you tweet, what you get to see is your timeline because most people come to Twitter to find tweets, right? But the UI of Twitter is not obstructing you from reading those tweets. It's only giving you an option at the bottom right to say, you know what, you can tap here to create a new tweet, right? So as much as possible, your UI should be in the background. It's not obstructive to your end user, especially for the different goals they are trying to achieve in a particular page, right? The next thing is reduce friction or frustration that can reduce retention. A lot of apps out there, right? People use it for 1 month and they are frustrated and they leave, right? You need to make sure even if you're trying to use it as a gimmick to grow your platform, ensure that the design you've put in there into your app is not frustrating the users. One of the case studies here I would have thought is Clubhouse, right? Clubhouse is great. I think around 2020, during like when we were in the heat of the pandemic, a lot of people were trying to get into Clubhouse, and Clubhouse had the only on iPhones first. It had a lot of friction per se, right? Some apps have done that thing, and it got people to aspire to be part of the app. However, if you notice, Twitter Spaces launched shortly after, and today more people do Twitter Spaces compared to Clubhouse. And these are like very, very subtle things that you can, and it may even go beyond the UI design because it's a lot. A lot of times, people need to just make sure that the apps they are designing reduces the user friction. And if you notice, the more you keep reading everything I'm talking about, you will keep on seeing users, users, users. Because what you're doing is user interface, the interface of the user. So as much as possible, if you don't get anything out of this whole class, understand that users come first. Your design comes next. The next thing here is ensure users are able to correct mistakes. So this is a whole argument because up until now, Twitter has not released the edit button, right? But then again, they may have even more reasons to have no edit button because maybe Twitter thinks of it as we want when you tweet something, you can come back 10 years from now and say, this is exactly what I tweeted. Or people should quote you, 5 years from now. Maybe that's a reason. More people have suggested, Twitter, you can actually add a feature that shows edited, right? And even now, I think with Twitter Blue, they used that edit button people wanted so much to launch a paid version of Twitter. So there are multiple ways to understand how, you can apply user thinking to your UI design. But in every way, try to still focus on UI design. The next thing I'll say here is allow users to easily undo, redo, cancel, or go back. I mean, you're not as big as Twitter to not have them, have people have the undo button or rather the edit tweet button. But when you're launching a new app, as much as possible, just allow people to easily undo, redo, cancel, or even go back. The next thing is one of the most important points for me: prioritize usability over personal design satisfaction. As a designer, you want to add your favorite color, or oh, my daughter loves pink, so I would add pink to this client's project. It doesn't work that way. Ensure that what you're designing is first usable before your personal satisfaction as a designer. There are a lot of times designers fall into the trap of trying to add a particular design pattern or add a particular design style to an application, which may not entirely align with usability. And usability here is how usable is the application, how user friendly is it. These terms are all very simple. Most of the use in UI design most of the U refers to use or user, right? So it's actually very simple. Any of these terms you don't understand, feel free to ask here or check on Google. They are like super, super simple. The next thing I would say here is the simplicity of an interface is as important as functionality. This is a very strong statement because I feel like a lot of times people feel like, oh, the fact that my app can do 10 different things at the same time makes it much more superior than the next app. But what I realize is that if your app has all these features, but it is not simple for your users to use, then it's useless. Maybe it's too strong, but I mean, it's an opinion, right? I feel like as much as possible, you should try to match all your very beautiful functionality with very simple, easy to use interface. Because products are built to be used by people, and empathy, like Arthur just added, is super, super important. If you really care about these users, you will keep it simple for them. There's no joy in that customer trying to get customer service or customer support to assist them in what they are trying to do on your app when they would have been able to do it themselves. So in keeping interfaces simple, there are a few tips here. Simple interfaces are easy to code and easy to use. Most times when you have an interface that just has very simple elements on it, trust me, your developer can be able to code that interface a lot faster, and your customers will be able to use that interface a lot better. But most times when you have complex interfaces, it will take longer for your developers to code. And I don't know how much you guys believe, but collaboration is super, super important when it comes to designing a product or designing a website or even designing any online interface. Because most times what you've designed on Figma or even what you've sketched out cannot be used by the end user until it has been coded. So to even get, for you to get people to even use that app, it has to pass from design to code back to design for improvement to it being in production for it to even be live for people to use. So as much as possible, keep your interface simple so it can even help the process. It will help the customers, it will help the developers, and it will help everyone in the system. The next thing is simple interfaces communicate your product clearly. Again, if you think about when we talked about the health application like maybe 15 minutes ago, I talked about how you open this app and the first thing you're seeing is, "Hi, Kate, how are you feeling today?" Right? The fact that that's the only thing on that interface and it is super, super simple. And maybe the next thing you just see, the last time you logged in, this or that thing, just very simple stuff. Most times, complex interfaces that have too many things distracting, it doesn't communicate what the product can do. If you go back to Twitter, you will see that, one of the major buttons when you open your Twitter is the blue button. And we'll talk about color more, but you see how, keeping it simple sort of helps to communicate what can be done with this app. Another thing that is important is simple interfaces prioritize the objective of a page. So when you keep things simple, it shows you what you can do on each page. The next time you click on the tweet button, the circular tweet button on your Twitter account, you'll see that what you just see is a plain screen, maybe asking you what is on your mind, right? When you keep things simple, it clearly prioritize the objective of that page. That page is for you to write your new tweet. So it shows you, okay, this page is for writing new tweets. This is exactly what it looks like. We're not telling them, check out your last 5 tweets. We're not telling them, check out your insights on the tweets you tweeted last week. We're not telling them, this is when you open your Twitter account. We are putting things in the right places because a simple interface will prioritize the objective of a page. This also talks about the fourth point, add only elements that are absolutely necessary. So most times, I'll talk about login for different apps right now. When people create logins or rather sign up pages for new apps, some of them feel the need to ask for customer first name, customer last name, and this is like first name, last name, email address, phone number, mother's maiden name, location, zip code. And this is just for you to sign up. And maybe if possible, they ask you for your credit card details. And it's crazy because if you're asking for so much, people will not sign up. What you're forgetting is that you need people to walk into the app, like really get into the app. Then you can ask them those other questions. But from the get-go, and when you think about user interface and experience, if you understand it very clearly, you start seeing it in everything. You start seeing that, the fact that you're trying to maybe get a new apartment, and before you even view the apartment, they're asking you for so many different data just for you to see the apartment. You haven't even decided to take that apartment just because you want to look at it. They're asking for so much from you. You realize that, I'm not interested. Those guys want my soul just for me to see the apartment. What if I don't even like it? Now take that into an online interface. This app wants me to enter this, and this. What if I don't enjoy using the app? And these are like really important things because when you add only things that are necessary, then you can reduce the friction and the frustration from your end users. Now, the last thing here is use language that is easy to understand and easy to read. As much as, yes, someone said don't make users think. You just got part of the next thing I'm about to say. Like super simple. Keep it really, really, really simple. Disappointed there's no image on this presentation so far. Don't worry about it. So one of the things I want you guys to understand is, as much as possible, the reason there's no images here is that all of that composed in quiz. I believe that, if I have shown you guys image and text, and again, some of these things is actually the way you think about this. When this slide will be sent, you'll be able to see, like, I'll be able to add more content to it. But for now, I'm trying to teach you guys the fundamentals so you guys can imagine these things. Because if I can get to show you how to think, you'll be able to understand whatever you're seeing. Everyone is actually intelligent. Everyone is creative. Most of the times, the challenge is that, it's not clear enough for you to understand, or it's not broken down. Now, on clarity helps users recognize and understand how to use your product with less effort. Recognize and understand, super important. Now, in this part, what is important here is this. If you want to use the next social media tool, for example, you want to use TikTok, you've been on Instagram, you used Facebook, maybe you use MySpace and High Five, and you're about to just create a new account on TikTok. The fact that, the TikTok interface is very easy the fact that it has plus for you to add a new post, right? It allows you recognize that, oh, this is similar to this other tool I've used before, right? The fact that it has a stream of different videos, it looks familiar to, is familiar, just like you're used to Instagram, which also has a feed. You're used to Twitter, which also has a feed. You're used to LinkedIn, which also has a feed. So as much as possible, using clarity as a tool in your UI design would actually simplify what people are seeing, so they get to use far less effort to be able to get to complete their user goals on using your app. The next thing here is tips on striving for clarity. So with clarity, as much as possible, you understand that more visual elements will increase complexity. So the more things you add into your app, the more things you want to show the users, it will actually increase complexity. Fewer visual elements increases perceived aesthetics. Again, you might agree that these slides sort of look neat because there are only a few things on your screen. Yesterday, I think I tweeted some of the screens from this app, and even when it's on very small screens, you can actually read the content. And that's why the font is in a very large format, so that people can be able to see this even in low quality internet in some areas. You need to be able to make sure people can be able to see. Visual clarity increases perceived usability. When people see an app that has very clean pages, not too much on your screen, very minimalist approach, people would perceive it as this would be very easy to use. But the more they see lots of things on your screen, they just feel overwhelmed. And that research says that user attention span is as low as 8 seconds. Now, if users only have an 8 seconds attention span, which is it was about 15 seconds attention span 5-10 years ago, but now it's about 8 seconds. And it's because of so much technology we are taking in, so much content we are taking in. No one has the kind of patience that you have. People learn about a new product. The next thing they do is go on Google search and just type the product they are looking for. If they open your website and your website was cluttered, they don't understand how to find what they're looking for right on that page, they close and move on to the next website. They don't even have the patience to say, you know what, this website is promising, I will go check it on my laptop. Once they can't load on their phone rather, and see how it looks and just get what they want out of it from the UI or from the way content is presented, they move on to the next application because of attention span is really, really low. Now, the next thing is designed for better scannability, legibility, and readability. Scannability is the fact that, from every slide I'm showing you here, you can easily just scan and see what content is there. And that's why bullet points are actually good for UX design and UI design. Legibility is that the fonts are fairly large enough that most people can be able to see it. At least you can see the titles, and the titles are actually punchlines enough for you to understand, what we're talking about. Readability is the fact that, legibility is larger. Readability is that, the way it is written here, some people may see the way I write my tweets. I try to write tweets with the shortest amount of text possible, because I find that when you write with so many text, people don't read every single line. They sort of just capture keywords and understand what you are trying to say. Again, this ties back to that short attention span. When people say people don't read, they read, but don't read as long as you expect them to read. They want to see something immediately and just say, I understand what he's saying there. I understand what she's saying there. That's the way they read. They don't just take so long to read very long content to be able to get the drift. Most Twitter threads you see, someone just tweets and says, who can give a quick summary? Right? That always happens because readability is low when you've written very long paragraphs that are all merged together. But when you have very short paragraphs or short sentences, it drives better readability. consistency is super important when it comes to UI designs. Consistency is achieved using design systems, right? The consistent interfaces, they use like uniform design patterns. So if you notice, I can go back to my slides. Can you see? I'm just swiping through. You see how? Can you see how a lot of things don't change on this slide? The VZI logo that is at the top right is fixed throughout all these pages. The content on my Twitter handle is fixed on that edge, right? And then there is like links here that helps you even. I can be able to go back to user principles if I wanted to go back to user principles. So keeping things like consistent really, really helps to promote efficiency and learnability. So when what this is trying to say is that if you imagine these slides was UI, right? If you use a consistent design, people will understand what to find or how to use a new page or how to even read content in a new page. Now, tie it to an app. The fact that people know that at the bottom, I would always see navigation. They will not need to learn all over again every time they open the app to know that at the bottom, I will find all the navigation I need. It's important that, you design your interfaces to be consistent so that they always know where to find stuff. Because if they always know how to use it, then they can be efficient. Today you have people who can use Twitter on just one hand. They can easily check tweets, check a tweet that happened 10 years ago. They know how to search all of these things because Twitter is sort of consistent in their UI. So as much as possible, when you're creating interfaces, try to be consistent with your design. You can decide on the color for font text. Right now you can see all the text here is black. The things that are supposed to be highlighted are highlighted in 10% of gray. And it's done like that across different pages when required. As much as possible, try to be consistent because it increases efficiency and reduces stress of the end users. Consistent design is predictable. It's easy to use without instruction. And you see, this here ties to that whole idea of reducing customer support tickets. When you use consistent design in your UI, people can understand faster, what you're trying to achieve or what is on every page because you're using the same design patterns from a previous page on a new page. It helps the users transfer skills from one part of the app to another. And I explained that, the fact that they know how to use home page, they should be able to know how to use about page and know how to use contact page because they know that for all of these pages, the menu is at the top and they can always just click on this menu or the menu is at the bottom of mobile and they know how to navigate because, they've seen it on this, they know how it works on the next one. The next thing is elements should look and work in the same way throughout the interface. So as much as possible, when you have user interface elements, similar elements should work the same way. So if I don't know if you know what buttons are, right? When you hover on a button, the button floats, and that's like your style for button hover effect. As much as possible, when you hover on a button on another page and the button does not float like others, it gives a different, vibe. Like some parts of it, the buttons hover, some parts they don't hover. It has a bit of frustration. The reason why I'm spending more time on these fundamentals is that there are users that will complain. Be happy about the users that even complain. There are some that don't complain, they just close the app and never use it again. No feedback whatsoever. So as much as possible, it's very important to understand from their perspective early enough what can be done to improve the user interface before you add all these different design patterns and all of that they are not used to. And this covers the next point. Use popular design patterns that majority of users are familiar with. So I'm building an app. I've been building this for about a year now, an app to simplify website creation, right? And you can break it down to as simple as is a website builder that should be able to create websites for you on your phone. But to build this app, one would expect that I'm only researching WordPress and Webflow and other apps in the market, but I'm researching things like Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp. I'm exploring these tools and I'm studying how they structure their content. The fact that when you open Instagram, the first thing you see is timeline. When you click on this kind of thing on timeline, you can use to see more information. You can use to edit a post. All those features you're seeing that billions of people already use. If you use a similar pattern on your new app, even if they're in the same industry, you would reduce the amount of learnability, or rather, you reduce the amount of time it takes to learn how to use your own app and improve learnability. So you're making them easily learn your new app. If you are building the next video conferencing tool in the market, right? It would be nice for you to really study Zoom, study FaceTime. So, in fact, I'll tell you to build the next video meeting app, study every platform people communicate in video. Every platform beyond Zoom and Google Meet. Study Instagram Live. Study Twitter Spaces. Even Twitter Spaces is audio, but study it because you may find something new that you can add in your own app to make it have the functionality of Zoom, but as super simple like Instagram Live. And that's actually how you win. Most products in the market, what they are trying to sell is easy to use, simple to use, straightforward to use. If you can make a tool that is a lot simpler than the next tool and you have the right marketing and you're targeting the right audience, you can easily make money because you're building something that people can argue that is better than Zoom. Now, the upsides of that is a lot because if you want to talk entrepreneurship, Zoom can choose to acquire your app in the next 5 years and pay you $1 billion for it. Or you may even get, investors that would be keen to say, I love how simple this tool is. There's a tool right now, a lot of people don't know that it's built by a Nigerian person, and it's Calendly. Calendly is used almost everywhere in the world. Right now I'm in school and Calendly is part of, the companies we are studying. And Calendly was someone's dream because the person feels like, oh, meetings should be easily scheduled without stress. And the person goes out and builds out a tool that makes you easily schedule for a meeting. And today, maybe 10 years down the line, that tool is worth over $1 billion. So you see, a lot of times there is a lot of weight on the shoulder of a UI design person because you're practically helping human beings connect with an application. You're the one standing the gap and saying, I know how best you can use this. I will use what you are familiar with so it will be easy for you to use. The next thing here is use words that users already know in your interface. For example, go live has become a thing that we say a lot. I'm going live on Instagram. Go live can be a very good button for your next video conferencing tool. Maybe instead of start meeting, you say go live, right? And these are nuances that you have to also test the market and say, do people want to say start meeting or do you want to say go live? Are we targeting business users that would prefer start meeting? Or are we targeting regular people who would prefer to say, I want to go live, right? You see, another thing again is consistent design is predictable and it's easy to use without instruction. I actually copied this from the top and I didn't even change this, but let's take it as we are reiterating that step here. Keep your design as predictable as possible and easy to use without instruction. I would stop now so we can take a look at comments and just get like any feedback or anyone who wants to speak right now. So let's just have like a 5 minute break. So if you want to take like water or you want to, do anything, you can take that break and people can ask questions. I also need to take some water. Thank you. So Shola raised their hands.
Hi, Evans. Good evening. I just have a really quick question about, so you mentioned user experience prototypes, and then you mentioned like UI layouts. I know you spent the last couple of minutes like really going in detail around layouts, structure, um, interactions and such. But then, what level of expectations rely on the UX person when they are building out their prototype, as against all of this kind of detail that UI person is then bringing to bear.
Okay, that's a great question. So it's very important so in most companies, right, the UI person is the UX person. But if you're lucky to have a UX person who is independent of the UI person and you are the UI person, the UX person should be the one who is fact checking what you've designed. So the first thing is while sketching your wireframes, I would say collaborate with the UX person while sketching the wireframes because the UX person rather is expected to have a deeper connection with the customer. Remember, the UI designer is primarily focused on what users see. UX designer is focused on what users feel. So the person who is more connected with the emotions of the customer is the person that is the best advocate for them. So from your question, I believe that the UX person's role there is even after you've done things like your layouts and you have a very, very beautiful, aesthetically pleasing interface, the UX person should be able to start thinking deeply and say, when users click this, what do they see next? What should they click to find this page you've designed? What is on this page that we can remove to reduce distractions? And these are like different things that they need to think together collaboratively to be able to make a better application. Because even after they do all of these, it's only part of working with a developer, to understand which of these things we've decided here as UI UX guys, which of these things are easy to code, which of these things are better, to develop faster or launch the product a lot better. What's the next question? I hope I gave you a very good response. Okay, so if um who's next to okay, let me ask okay, Ife is
Oh,
here.
hi, good evening. So my question is about selling design. So assuming you're done designing a pre-product and let's say it's just a personal work you did, but you realize that, okay, I think this actually needs to be used. This should be in the market. So how do you target users, startups or companies that you want to sell it to and pitch it to them to sell your design?
Okay, that's a good question. I'll take that you're entrepreneurial with your ideas, and it does make sense. So a lot of times, the only thing I find that people don't think about is since you know that when you're done with this product, the next thing you'll find is customers. You can change the way things look that you start to target those customers before you finish building the app, right? And it's possible. You know, since I started, this new brand called Visi, I've been building a new app. The app is not even ready as at now. But you find that in the past 1 year, I've spent more time building an audience with the potential customers of this app, offering them value content for free, right? Because all of this knowledge I have is what I want to use in building this app. And what I'm building is a website builder. The people who design websites are mostly website designers, creators, small businesses, you know, and most techie people and even non-techie people. However, for me to not spend so much finding these customers when the app is launched, I'm offering classes, I'm offering free resources, I'm offering free advice, right? Because that way, you know, people would remember that, oh, Evans understands these things a lot. I would like to test his new application. oh, Evans understands these things a lot. I would love to, tweet about his new application. So as much as possible, you'll be surprised that actually before the class started today, my website like crashed. Between yesterday and today, 1,200 people registered for this class. In total, that brings about 7,000 people who registered for this class. I couldn't download their emails to even send them the invite because the website crashed. It's a good thing, it's a bad thing, but it also shows that, dude, this is like potential. Right now, about 15,000 people who have learned something the past 1 year, and it's all within that potential customer of this new app. So my advice to you is this: if you're trying to build a tool that helps a particular market, before that tool is launched, try to build an audience with that market. Try to share how much you know, because most people don't buy products just because they are products. They buy because they buy into the vision of a person. They buy because they feel connected with the person behind the product. So as much as possible, build an audience very early on before you even build the product or launch that business. So I would ask Fanny to speak. Shegun.
Good evening. Thank you, Evans. So my question is, in a case where probably, let me say, a startup, they are not really interested in this user experience of the thing, because sometimes what they want is, okay, put this here, put this here, put this here, and put this here. What are you supposed to do?
Okay, so it's what I would say is this. Most people don't understand the value of design until it costs them so much, right? Most people don't see the value in all of these things you're talking about. Some people believe that products are about the code. But I think you can make a good case for that startup if you show them that. So I was having this chat yesterday with some design people, and I was telling them that if you go out there and check, you realize that every banking tool out there, every banking app can send money, can receive money, can pay bills. Every app can do that. Every banking app technically can do that. But people like certain banking apps compared to the others. Then because of the love they have for those banking apps, they now love those banks, like the brands behind the app. Now we're talking about with UI design. UI design can influence how people love the app and how they love your business. So as much as possible, if you can show and make a good case to show them that, listen, beyond this is not just about it looks fine. This is about the future of this company. If we really want to excel in the market, we need to start designing intentionally for the people we are trying to serve. So as much as possible, trust me, you need to be able to get their buy-in. And if they don't, maybe it's not a design-driven company. Maybe find somewhere else to work, But most times it's important to get their opinion about these things. I'll start moving faster so we can cover more questions, so we can go back to the slides. Thank you very much, Shegun.
Yeah. Thanks, Evan.
Hi, Shegun.
Yeah. So I'll just like to know what the product design or UI/UX flow project flow looks like for both freelancers and for those who work who has a role in startups as well. Like getting how do you work? I'm actually new to UI/UX. So what's the flow like from client to the UI/UX designer?
Okay, great question. The first thing I'll say is this flow, the workflow actually is different for a freelancer and for someone who works in a company. For someone who's a freelancer, it's most likely you and the client, right? I won't say you versus the client, you and the client. It means that the client is telling you, I want to build a banking app that allows people to do XYZ with their money, right? Maybe save as well as invest their money very easy, right? Now, if it's only the client giving you that feedback, it means that you're not just the designer, you're also the product manager of that project. I mean, you're managing the process, right? But what I would expect is that UI designer is also the UX designer. Because now, from what they've said, the first thing, if I was working as freelance on that project, is to actually go and research banking and investment applications in the market. That's the very first thing I would do. I would go find, maybe 100 different banking and investment tools. I would download them all on my phone and I start to study the kind of workflow. I will understand that, firstly, the first things are, authentication pages. Authentication is your login, sign up, forgot password, all those extra pages, utility pages. Those are the first things, right? But the main meat of the product will be things like, what will the dashboard look like? What will the payments page look like? What will the transactions page look like? So you see that, the work of, when a person is freelancing as a UI designer, you have much more deeper work to do. Now, by researching all of these things, the next thing to do is create wireframes. Those wireframes, I would get you to tell your client to approve those wireframes or discuss those wireframes. And you discussing with the client is you've gone through like customers, you've called like 10 of your friends who are like in the target market of that product. Let's say the product is targeting Gen Z to millennials to save and invest their money in Nigeria, right? And you're ensuring that you're talking to like 10 or 20 people within that age bracket, within that place, not just because they're your friends, because friends can give you like it's great, go on guys, like makes sense. You need people that will tell you, I do not understand what you're building. I do not understand how this works. I want the app to be able to show me money and then show me how I can add more money and how I can withdraw my money. I don't want to invest with this app. You need to take all this feedback in and then do wireframes that you will sketch and then your clients can approve before you start to design prototypes. After designing prototypes, you can then move to working with a developer that gets to code those prototypes into the real application. Now, if you were in a company, it would be that, the CEO or the CTO or whoever is in charge of the product, the product lead, is giving the task, maybe calling a meeting and giving the task to designers and developers within the company. Now, in that situation, you may have another designer to collaborate with. You guys can split the effort and say, you know what, your focus is dashboard and payments. My own focus is investment and account management page. And you go do your research, I go do my research, and then we combine and we see how can we make the interface flow from this page to this page so it is consistent. And then there's a UX person in that team as well telling you guys, oh, this navigation you put at the top for mobile is going to be hard for the users because their hands, even if they're using left hand or right hand, the way their thumb is designed, it's easier to click things that are down, not at the top. So guys, you need to change your navigation on all these pages to make sure navigation is at the bottom so that users can easily navigate through this app. Now, whatever you're doing there needs to go back to the product manager after you guys have decided, and then the product manager will give you guys feedback or change what has been done before it gets into senior management to get to approve. I'm trying to talk really fast, but I hope I'm still being very clear. Thank you very much, Sheung. And you can always like just DM me or like ask me stuff separately. Hi, Uju.
Hi, hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Thank you very much for this free session. Thank you so very much. So I just wanted to ask, aside from websites and apps, what other solutions and products can a UX UI designer work on?
Apart from websites and apps. So the first thing I would say is user interface is mostly for online interfaces, right?
Okay.
But then there's also interfaces on your phone. So your phone, what you see on your phone is also an interface. Like when you open your phone, like people work in Apple or Android as a company to design the interface of a phone. So it's not always a website. It's not always an app. I mean, what you see on your phone is also an app, is an operating system, right? There are people who design UI for cars like Tesla, cars that have screens in them. There are people who design UI for Netflix, The fact that you open Netflix and you're able to use your remote to go right to find a movie or go left or search with your remote, that's all user interface. What other interface around me? On your wristwatch, your smartwatch, that's also user interface.
Okay.
Once it faces the user and it's on a screen, a digital screen, it's a user interface. So there are so many things you can design. It's just that some of them, like websites and apps, have much more opportunities compared to these other very small niche industries.
Okay, so simply put, it must be on a digital interface.
Yes, you got it right.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. David. Oh my God, so many hands raised. Okay, let's move faster. Hi, David.
Hi, Evans. Thank you very much.
Shoot.
Yes, so I have a question for like an interview. When you are asked to talk about like your design process, how best do you answer that question? Like
how what?
How best to answer a question on design process? Like you are asked to talk about your design process of an app, for instance.
Okay, the best way to answer that question is tell them about how you, number one, talk to your customers first. From what you've gathered from the customers, you get to build a persona of the kind of person that will use that app. So you talk to customers first. Firstly, you get a brief, right? And this is for you to smash that interview. Tell them that you need to receive a brief first, right? From that brief, if that brief has the target audience, then you now use that target audience to get to people that you want to speak to. So if the target brief is a startup who is trying to fix logistics in Sudan, or sub-Saharan Africa, you can use to say, who are your target market for this? B2B companies who are trying to get logistics done. You then know that, okay, I need to find people maybe through LinkedIn who are in the B2B space in Sudan, right? And you find like 30 of them and you write them cold emails saying that you're working on a project to do this and this and this. And you would like to get their feedback, and you create design a survey. And that survey is asking questions like, oh, how do you do your logistics today? Do you do a bit of logistics? What platforms do you use? You're just gathering information. That's like the very first step. Gather information, understand the user persona, understand the kind of person you're targeting for this app. Now, with all of that, the next thing is to do wireframes. With the wireframes you've done, you've sketched out a possible solution. You take that wireframe you've designed and go back to these people and say, look at what I think would be a solution. This happens here, this happens here, this happens here, and then your goods get delivered. And then you get an email notification saying that your goods have been delivered at so and so time, right? That on its own is part of the process. Now, when they give you more feedback saying, no, it's important that two people get the emails about the delivery, the people who got the goods delivered to them and me, myself, getting the goods delivered from my own end. You go out there and improve your user interface to show that all of these things get to happen, right? Another thing you can also do is now have information architecture saying that this page links to this page and then this links to this page, and then you show the whole story in a prototype. So maybe I've moved too fast, but the first thing I said is gather information. Next thing, create wireframes. Next thing, test those wireframes you've created. When you test it with the feedback, implement the feedback on the prototype. Now with that prototype, you can then go talk to developers and even get the product live. If you tell them this in that interview, you'll get the job. Next person. I can't find all the hands raised anymore. Zoom is frustrating me right now. Okay, yeah, I can see it again. So Dolani. Hello. Hello. Okay, so I can't see all the hands. So what I'll do is this. I'll lower everyone's hand now and we'll continue the slides and then we go back to asking questions. Thank you very much for the questions so far. And I also got the questions from YouTube, and next round of questions, we'll get to raise our hands again. Okay. So the phase 2 of user principles here, I want you guys to understand is hierarchy, reducing cognitive load, and designing for accessibility. On hierarchy is about, using colors, size, fonts to show the order of importance and to direct users' attention. So what this means is, as much as possible when you're using like color or size, and I believe everyone has like a phone with them. I want us to use like like apps that you are seeing that you use, right? Because it's easier for you to see interface design like right on your screen. So what I would say is this: with hierarchy, if you can quickly open WhatsApp or Facebook or Twitter right now, you would find that on WhatsApp, the first thing you see when you open like your screen, you would see chats in a bigger font at the top, right? Now, chats there in a bigger font at the top is showing you this is the page you're on. You're on the chat page. If you switch to calls, it shows you calls at the top. So you're seeing that, oh, I'm on the calls page. And this is actually how hierarchy is used. The next thing is size, right? That text saying the text showing you the page you're on is always in a larger font and is a title heading font. So you can easily know where you are. That's actually hierarchy, And again, the choice of font, all of these things sort of show you like the order of importance. So you know that you're on this page. Here is the content of this page, and here is colors used to drive your attention. If you go to Twitter immediately, you find that, most of the links on Twitter in blue, to show you that you can actually click to, either take this action or that action. Other times, you look at what is the biggest color on your screen. The more you have a sharper contrast color on your screen, it just shows you, or it directs the user to where you want them to go, right? The use of color. Right now, I'm seeing on my screen, I can see the slides I'm sharing, and I can see stop share. Now, stop share is like the action button here, and is in bright red because that's what they expect from someone who has started a meeting, that you eventually at some point stop sharing, the screen you're sharing. So a lot of times, hierarchy is used in form of color, size, and fonts to show like level of importance and to direct users their attention. Now, in using hierarchy, size in typography highlights titles and body text. So you can use size to show this is a title, and also use size to show this is a body text. On this page right now, imagine this was UI. Look at the text, use hierarchy. That's a title. That's why it's in larger font size. This other text is a body text, and that's why it is smaller. There are also things like menus at the top, which I showed you guys like on the slides. I'm trying to make it like interactive slides, so you can actually click and go back to, where you're trying to navigate from, right? But with that, like this is actually how you use font sizes to show what is more important than the others. Bright colors stand out more than muted tones. So on this slide right now, I can see my stop share button is very bright on my screen compared to any other thing on the screen, because that's like they're trying to drive user attention to that place. Now, the next thing again is white space around elements draws the eyes towards them. When you leave space around elements, it sort of, cushions the user and their attention to be able to focus on that particular thing. The next point here is alignment of elements creates visual coherence. I could go through these slides again, like 5 slides back, and you see that every single thing aligns to a part, like it is not changing, like the alignment is the same across, different pages, right? You have the fact that there is space. I think you can still see my cursor. There's space. Now on this UI on this screen, right? This area, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor moving, but this area is actually 100 px, right? I have 100 px from the top to here, and then I measured that and used the line, right? Now the same space between here and this edge cuts across down. There's an invisible line that draws down here. And it is 100px space between here and the edge. And this is actually how you align different things to create like very good visual coherence. Because by the time we go through like 10 slides, you now know that, oh, I always see the title at the top left. After the top, or I always see the title and the navigation at the top left. I always see his Twitter handle on the far right, because I mean, that's not as important as the content, right? And I see all the content aligned to the left, because most people read from left to right. And these are like very simple ways you can use alignment to create like a visual coherence. You know, it looks balanced in the eye. Another thing is elements that are closely placed seem related. So how will I put that now? So here, if we're looking at like, I will show you how this applies to like real UI. So maybe again, check your phone, check like Twitter, you see that, you know, there's a way things are placed, you know, you then know that, oh, this is connected to this. For example, if you go to your Twitter and try to access your profile on Twitter, like click on your profile, you see all the icons like profile, list, topics, bookmarks. They are all closely packed together compared to things like Twitter ads, which is far away from your screen, right? You know, which is far away from where all of them are grouped together. So when you group elements together, you're painting a picture that they are all connected or they are all related. The next thing is repeated styles show that the elements are related. So most times when you see how, you know, elements are aligned, it sort of shows that these two are related. So for example, this is an example right here on our screen. Right now, my avatar is close to my Twitter handle. Having that close together shows that they are actually related. So this is actually my angle or my avatar, and then this is my name. If I had my avatar photo almost at the middle of the screen, it looks weird for the end user since both of them actually go to the same Twitter handle. Cognitive load is one thing that seems like big grammar, but it's super, super simple. Cognitive load is practically just as simple as memory load. Think of human beings as machines. I know we are human beings, right? But think of yourself as a machine. Whenever you're thinking, is exhausting your RAM, right? I mean, I'm trying to like break this down to like very simple way. Like think of it as every time you make your users think, you are increasing the load on their brain, right? If you design an app that has a high cognitive load, you're giving users a lot of stress. You know, when you design an app that is confusing, that has misalignments, that has poor color contrast, that has all of this, you know, it's so complex to understand. It has high cognitive load, and, you know, it's eventually creates a friction that these users don't get to use this app for even longer times. They get to drop off. They get to just find an alternative app. You know, yesterday I was creating the quiz questions for the end of this class, and the app I was trying to use was so frustrating. And when I realized I was frustrated by like 10 minutes, I was like, I just searched on Google for an alternative to that app. I mean, there are times when people want you to learn, read a manual, you know, read all the FAQ, but how many people really read about the FAQs? Or how many people really want to contact customer service to understand how to use an app in today's market? People expect that the app is easy to use, not that they have to go learn how to use it. So yeah, don't make them think. Love your users. We are getting to the end of the slides, and then the next thing we'll do is we'll go on Figma and design something for banking. Reduce cognitive load here is use self-explanatory text and familiar symbols. So if you notice, like almost all the tips we've been talking about sort of connect to making things easy for customers. And that's actually how you should have this in your mind whenever you're talking about or thinking about user interface. You know, here I'm saying beyond visual simplicity, aim for content simplicity. So even after I think about, you know, it is simple to see, is the content easy to understand? You know, when you tweet and you write so many long paragraphs, it makes it difficult for users to actually understand what you're reading. So someone asks for a summary, like, what's the summary of this whole story? Most, if you notice, YouTube has also launched YouTube Shorts because people don't have the attention span to watch a 3-hour video sometimes. They also want to see like very short videos that give them like 15 seconds information. If you notice, Instagram launched stories, and because of this, the success of, in fact, stories came from Snapchat. Because of the success of stories, it moved on to Instagram, moved on to WhatsApp, and almost every other tool in the market. Because people don't have the attention span, and they don't want anything that has a high memory load on their brains. So try to design as if your customer has 8 seconds to spend with you. What will I tell them in 8 seconds? If someone asks me, Evans, what is the golden, give me the best tip on UI design, say focus on your customer. That is it. That's all I will tell you. And if you can focus on them long enough, you will design things that are usable, lower cognitive load, accessible to their eyes. You know, a lot of that. You know, see here it says use common layouts to reduce the amount of learning to use your app. So when you use simple layouts that are common, people will not need to spend so much time trying to learn to use your new application, because the more time they spend learning, they are spending more time thinking. The more they are thinking, the more cognitive load in their head. You know, eliminate the steps that are not vital. For example, you're signed up to a new application, and after they ask you for your first name and your last name and your email address and your phone number, they tell you next. And after next, you then start seeing date of birth, you know, and all of these things is for as simple as a tool to buy. Imagine you're trying to log into a shopping site and they're asking you for all of that. If it's not vital to the completion of buying a product, which is the task here on the shopping site, don't ask users for it. If it's not, if you don't need if you're not delivering the product to them, maybe their last name is not that important. If the product is an online ebook to purchase, maybe all you need is enter your email and your first name, and you send them the product. You don't need to ask them for their address. Imagine if, you know, before you sign up for this class, Evans asked you for your address. Even if I ask for your location, a lot of people will not sign up. I didn't even ask for first name. I understand the need, because if you ask for first name, you can personalize and tell them, hi, Shikwan, you know, welcome to this class. You know, but really, I felt like that's just under stress for them. Just ask for email address so you can email them the link. And the reason I wanted to email links the whole time was to reduce, you know, Zoom bombing and all of those things, which, I mean, these things happen. You know, but as much as possible, try to reduce cognitive load. Use the simplest step possible to achieve the goal. Because it's when you've done that, you can then put on your website and say, our app is simple and straightforward. Our app is simple and easy to use. But if you have so many steps that are relevant for the user, you can't really claim that. Another thing here is write clear headlines and small paragraphs that are easily scannable. The reason I try to reduce the tips here to be very, very short, maybe at the most 7 words, is so that you can easily grasp them and it's not looking like a whole long note to study. You know? And the last thing here is excess content takes up the main focus and reduces conversion. When you write so much content, I mean, it can be great if you're looking to write a story, but if you're trying to delete an app on your phone and the next thing you see is, are you trying to delete this app? By deleting this app, you're deleting every other. If you keep reading so many instructions, you just get exhausted. You know, are you sure you're going to delete this app? It's just enough. And you try to make sure your content is like just short and smart, so the user knows enough of what they need at that particular time. If you want to use delete as a button on an app, instead of saying delete this application now, just say delete and cancel. Sometimes, you know, very simple content actually just helps users focus on the task they are trying to do. Having so many different instructions or so much text it would end up just confusing them and increasing their memory load. Accessibility, I think, is one of the very last things we'll talk about here. And we'll move on to things around color, shapes, and all of that. Accessibility designing to ensure users of different abilities can be able to navigate and understand your UI. So accessibility, one of the biggest things accessibility has changed in recent years is the uprising of dark mode. Last time I checked, about 84% of people use dark mode on their devices. Once it's available, they switch to dark mode. The reason they do that is because most times when you're looking at your UI at night, it's easier for you to look at dark mode compared to light mode. So as much as possible, if you can, it's actually a plus if your app can have dark mode and light mode, because a lot of people don't have they find it difficult to actually look at bright white screens, especially because not everyone has perfect vision as you would imagine. So as much as possible, try to use even things like when you're labeling your images, try to use simple labels for images so they know, in case they have poor internet, it can show it's an image there and it's an image of this. So use alt text on your images because it also helps SEO. So there's a lot of things that concern accessibility, and I feel you can actually read a lot more about accessibility in design. So the tips here is there's a color contrast checker tool here on this that you can actually use to test out different colors and how they look on different backgrounds, right? And the first point here is remember a significant portion of the world's population is colorblind. A lot of people are colorblind. If you rely on only color to distinguish things in your app, it may not be enough because some of these colors, when you turn them all to black and white, they all look the same, So if you can actually use more indicators beyond only color, it actually helps. The next thing here is ensure all images have text descriptions. Here we talked about that. Use responsive design so users can access on all devices. When you design an app and you design only for desktop, you're cutting off a lot of mobile users. It's interesting to note that in the world generally right now, mobile has trumped amount of desktop users. There was a research that happened last week and they said TikTok was the most visited site last year compared to Google. But right now, when people use their mobile phones, I bet that a lot of people in this class are on their phones and not on the computers. So these are changes in behavioral patterns of users that should also guide the way you design that is accessible to them. So make your design available on every device so that people can easily access it better, and test and improve these designs based on users' feedback. UI style guide, there's colors, fonts, icons, and images. On UI style guides are elements of interfaces that ensure brand alignment and consistency. So just like a style guide is bigger than a design system is bigger than a style guide. A style guide is a component of a design system. Design systems are much more robust and they have much more different elements contained in it. And you can research this later. But UI style guide is almost this is the very small molecule of the whole design system. And this part just caters to things like I mentioned here, colors, what fonts, what kind of icons, and what images to use, right? Now, colors in UI design. I'm sure it feels good to see a new color instead of black and white the whole time. So I always advise use 1 or 2 brand colors for accents and buttons. So accents and buttons are highlights on your design and button highlights as well. Most times when you have buttons, you want to use a color to distinguish, to show that this is an action button. Now, there are cases where the brand color is black. Then you now see black as the action button for, when you're trying to make a task or complete a task on the product. But most times, if you have a brand color like yellow, orange, purple, that color forms the action button color. So if you have a button called submit or publish or done, those colors now take that active brand color. But then you use the next point here, use white, black, and shades of gray for balance. So you see that, most apps is nicer when you have a pure white background, for light mode, and a darker background, a dark background for dark mode. And then you now use like, shades of gray for balance. On this screen you're looking at right now, you can see that there's a shade of gray used for lines here. If I used black for these lines at the top, it would be a little distracting because it would be taking so much attention from the fact that that line is just for, having that alignment and, clean design, right? Now, the next thing is use semantic colors for error, success, caution, and information. So as much as possible, don't use red for success and use green for error. It will confuse your users. Because there's already a mental model being created from the way they use 10,000 other different apps. They can't have to learn your new app and how it works. Try to use the conventions that people are used to. For caution, use yellow for caution or orange. Use blue for information if you're to give like, pop-up information. But as much as possible, you can also use like brown color for information. But things like error and success are very, very critical. And even caution, you can't switch these colors and use red for, you can actually use red for caution, but you can't use red for error, for success, and use green for error. So these are like nuances that you will get to become better at over time. The next thing is add optional colors for charts and other cases. So if you have like parts of the app that has to show like statistics, you might also need to have like extra colors just in case the primary colors and the black and whites and shades of gray are not enough. You might also need to add like other colors that might be able to be used, or mix of colors that can be used, but make sure they sort of all flow in the same spectrum. The next thing is ensure your design is confined in the color set. So when you've defined all these colors, try to not bring a different color entirely into this design you're making. Because one thing we need to also notice is that you need to simplify the work for a developer. If the developer has noted that you have 5 different colors and they fix those colors on their code, it makes sense that you can easily say, oh, you know what, use gray 2 for this place, use gray 3 for this, use black for this background, use white for this background, right? It's easier than when you tell them, use aqua, and the person says, what shade of color is aqua? Give me the hex code. And you're like, hey, just type aqua there, or just use any aqua. When you start to do that, your design loses consistency. Any color you introduce into the color for your style guide, try to define them in your document, or define them so they are the same colors used everywhere. Because of that, consistency is really, really important. Remember that for these colors, before you decide on them, you test their contrast as well. To be sure that they would look and work well in different screens. On fonts, make sure your fonts are legible, they are clear, and they are enjoyable to read. I've gotten some good feedback that these slides are actually very easy to read, and I always use Interfont. Interfont is the font used on GitHub, used on Figma, used on a lot of other, very big platforms. And I think I would share links to, you can actually Google Interfont, it's on Google Fonts, right? So this is the font I use for this. And I find that most times people can easily read it, and it's very, very clear, and it has like all the different weights I need, from very thin to very bold, right? The 3 types of typeface are either serif, sans serif, or decorative. But as much as possible, when you are building apps, try to rely on sans serif. What you're seeing here is a sans serif font. Serif fonts are a little stylized, and I understand that this class is not giving you every single thing you need, because that would be me pampering you. I want you to learn how to research. Some of these things, I'm putting them here to spark your curiosity, to know what to search online, because your greatest good as a designer would be that you know how to search for how to solve problems with design. One thing developers don't tell you enough is Stack Overflow saves their lives. A lot of developers just know how to search for the the challenges they are having and know how to get the responses and know how to implement that in a code. The same way, designers should learn how to research design patterns, research, different fonts to know what kind of things to use to apply in a platform they are designing. Use 1.5x line height for paragraph text and adjust accordingly. So most times when you're doing line height is the space between each of these contents. So between here and this, if I had merged them all together, it would be difficult for you to actually read. But the fact that you have spaces in between them sort of helps a lot, when you are reading. Use legible, clear, and distinctive typography, 3 fonts max. The reason I'm saying this is most designs that are bad is from you have multiple different designs on one very simple product or multiple different typography. You have so many fonts on that product, it becomes a huge challenge. As much as possible, it's important to contain your typography to be just 3 at the most. Now, another thing here is decrease letter spacing when increasing font size. These kind of things are like nuances that is actually better when you are seeing like visuals. And probably I'll have to create a workbook after this one again, to show some of these nuances and how to apply them. But these are things that, gradually, whenever you go back to this material and you read through, you would find something that you can improve in your design. Because even for me doing the research for this class, there are things I saw I need to go improve on my own design. Because design is you're always learning. And when you have the heart of a beginner that, I'm always learning at this stuff, it helps you to know so much and you will have the best attitude to learning at any given time. On icons, what the ideas on icons is, or the tips rather, it will be pair unfamiliar icons with labels. So whenever if you're trying to use an icon for payments in an app, try to use something that people can relate to payment. Now, if there's no icon that is, that is easy for you to call a payment icon, then also align the text pay to that icon. So for example, when you were looking for a function on your app for transactions, again, imagine you are building a banking app. There's a tool on that banking app called transactions. It's actually best if you're using a page icon for transactions, because transaction log is like a long list of transactions, right? If you're using an icon that means page, or an icon for line, and that icon says transaction, try to align the text transactions to that icon so people can see this and connect it to this. Not just put an icon there and people don't know what that icon does. Whenever you want to use icons and you remove the labels, make sure people are seeing, that icon every day. If you go to Twitter today, you see Twitter uses the home icon, search icon, the bell icon for notifications. And the reason they don't need to put any text under it is because people know the home icon is the dashboard. So every time you click home, it takes you to the home page. So as much as possible, try to use icons that people can easily relate with. The next thing here is use icons that are easy to recognize. Yes. Use consistent icons from a similar set. Very important. If you want to design very good applications, don't just take icons from anywhere and combine them all. Try to make sure the icons all look similar. They all look, the same unique style. Don't combine a field icon with an outline icon. All of this kind of stuff are really important. Then use simple icons that are visually pleasing. When your icons are too complex, it becomes confusing. As much as possible, try to make sure the icons are very, very simple. You can add animation, but that's like a whole deeper level. If you have access to learning how to animate, learn. Because if you can animate very small icons, people would actually appreciate looking at the app to actually increase the way they feel, towards the app. Then for mobile, ensure the icons have enough tap area. Now, tap area refers to like what you can click on the app when it comes to an icon. So if you're clicking on, for example, the home icon on Twitter, and it's not giving you, it should allow you to click around that icon and not just only on the icon itself, because people have different sizes of hands, and this is actually, their fingers have different sizes. This is an accessibility thing, right? You need to ensure that people can easily tap on the icon, or tap around the icon for them to get, the desired effect. On images, use stock photos and custom typography to display like a specific scenario. So if you want to sell a product and you want to, show how that product is used or how that product delights customers, you can actually use stock photos to get like a specific way you want to tell the story. But if you're like doing, a futuristic style of design and you can't readily get a picture for that, imagine you want to create a design on your UI that means that somebody is flying in the cloud, with a document, and what you're trying to sell is documents in the cloud. It may be better to use an illustration to do that if you don't have like a very good graphic designer that can take someone on the ground and put them in the sky. You can use a vector illustration to do that. Now, the next thing I'll say is use imagery that is relevant and authentic to your target users. So when using images, try to ensure that the images match culturally to, culturally, with your target users. So if you're building an app for the Asian market, ensure that you have Asians in the design, or rather the picture selection, so they can relate to the images on your website. Check the image licenses, that you're getting, or use on Splash, so that you can use their images without any license challenge tomorrow. Now, on images also, add descriptions of images, that's alt text for better SEO. So it's almost like when you add images on your UI design, always try to describe those images so that developer knows where to add those descriptions, so that even if it's not loading properly on the person's screen, maybe based on low internet, it is showing what the description of that image that is supposed to be there is. Now, I'll employ you to also research about SVG graphics, because SVG images, they are very light. They are usually vector and they are very light. And when you use vector SVG images on your website or app, it would reduce the amount of load time, because what makes websites load slowly is also images and videos and content generally, but mostly images and videos. If videos are uploaded directly to a website, it would take time for that website to load fast. If the video is embedded from YouTube, it may still load fast because now it's not feeding from the main website, it's just being embedded and is hosted on YouTube. But for images, most images are existing on the actual website. So as much as possible, try to use SVG in cases that it allows. Maybe you're using a Webflow or WordPress or any other platform to create a website. Try to use SVG graphics, or even in your app, right? Use SVG for things like logos, icons, and all of that, because it reduces the weight on the server and makes your app load a lot faster. And we are at the end now. So further reading, I'm going to add more links to this even after the class. You can use to read more about design systems, check out the design system checklist, read more about design systems on Figma, and check Adobe XD ideas. Thank you. But let's go back. Now let's take another set of questions, then we go to Figma. So you know the drill, raise up your hands and allow you speak. 5 participants raised hand. Got it. So oops, no, you guys are moving too fast now. Okay. Ifena. Dominic.
Yeah, okay. So I finally get to speak. Good evening, Evans.
Good evening.
Can you hear
How
me?
you doing? Yes, clearly.
Okay, good evening. Good evening, everybody. I have a quick question for you. You seem like you're well integrated and you have very powerful business acumen. you're not a UX designer, I guess you're a product designer. That's like a major difference, right?
Well, it depends. What's the question?
Okay, so what's soft skills apart from the design? What kind of skills gave you an edge over every other designer, like something like psychology or branding, product marketing, or ethnography? What kind of soft skills did you have to learn in your experience that gave you this edge over other designers or that differentiates you?
Okay. Firstly, my background is crazy. I started my career in 2008. That was my first job. At the time, I think I was an intern at in consulting. I was an intern in consulting, right?
Okay.
So starting out with consulting background as an intern when I was in university, helped me to understand that we are in business to help customers. That's practically what we do in consulting, help customers. Graduated from school in 2009, looked for a job for a bit, Niger stress, and eventually started designing because there were no jobs out there for an industrial chemistry graduate. Very funny life, but I started designing at that time. And again, the same thing I had learned from like that small consulting background, I was then applying it in consulting, for small businesses, creating designs for them. So way back as 2010, I was designing logos for brands. I was studying how logos should look like, and I designed those things and listened to feedback from these customers and tell me, oh, I don't like it, doesn't look so good. I don't like this color. I was learning all of these things, right? 2 years down the line, I got a job, with e-commerce. I think at the time it was Jumia, and I designed the logo for the company at the time, because I was there when they were just about to rebrand to be called Jumia. So at that time again, doing all of these things, I then moved from just doing logos to full-on brand identities. I was designing business cards, letterheads, ID cards, T-shirts, and all of these things involves a lot of stakeholder management, right? You're designing even things like bike branding, and you get to learn a lot from what people think about design, how people perceive design. You get to even understand. I never knew I was even learning UX, and I'm getting there, because then I think I designed a billboard, and I was like, I shouldn't add too much of text on this billboard because people are going to be driving fast on the expressway. If they have to read, if they have to read a whole, paragraph on a billboard, then they could have accidents. I started to understand, you need to be customer focused. This was when I didn't know there was a term called customer centric. I was like, design these things so it is customer focused, and that's how design kept on improving. I got to work, build an agency, built the next agency called Crigital. It was firstly my private consulting, then rebranded to Crigital Agency. I was serving way bigger clients. And in all of these things, it's lots of consulting, lots of, I don't like that design, lots of design a new one, lots of feedback over the years, has made me understand uniquely how to build or how to design stuff for a vast amount of people. And I even then moved on to building a product first. You must have found Disha somewhere online, built that. I was actually learning, UI design when I built that product. All I knew was, okay, Linktree works this certain way. This other product works this way. I can, design this to be simpler and then build that product. It became successful, so I think soft skills is, I got to understand empathy over time from hating these clients that gave me 10,000 feedbacks to me understanding that they don't hate me. They just want their business to prosper. And my skills as a designer can either make or break their business. Gradually it helped me to become a better designer, which translated plus entrepreneurship over these years, plus lots of research is a lot, If you go to my Instagram and scroll, you may see a lot of stories from like 5 years ago, how I started, most of what I do today, and it sort of paints a better picture. But thanks.
All right. Thank you very much for that answer. That was very, very, very well, explanatory. And yeah, you did answer my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Eniola, go. Is Eniola there? Should we move on to the next person?
Yes. Good evening.
Yes. Hi, Eniola. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. My question is regarding using line spacing. So you made mention in your slide using
1.5, yes.
5x. Is it a precise parameter, or does it change over time? Because in one of his videos, Jesse Showalter made mention of using 1.68 in height. So I don't know if that is, because it's kind of a mix up to me right now. So I don't know if you can elaborate more on it. Thank you.
So what I put here is adjust accordingly. With some fonts, 1.5 is just enough. Not all fonts are designed equally, right? Some fonts, 1.5 is just enough. It will give you enough space. But some other fonts you need to use. In fact, when you're using like titles, right? Things like, fonts in UI design right here, what you're seeing as title here, you should be using about 1.2 or 1. So as you can adjust these things to what looks balanced in your eyes. And you can also test it with customers. Ask someone, do this and this, test 1.5 and 1.6 and ask them which is easier to read, this or this. Gradually, you get good at it, but for different fonts, it actually varies. There are some fonts that the way it is structured, you need to go as high as 1.9 for it to be legible enough for people to read. So there's no standard, 1.5 is a baseline that you can start to improve from. You understand? So don't worry about it. There's no fixed, number for it. Emmanuel, you're up next.
Yeah, good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Emmanuel.
Okay, yeah, good evening. Thanks a lot for this class. So my questions are, number one, now the UX process, like there's a lot, like using the design thinking process now, there's a lot of tools from your user story, user persona, use cases, product statement, how I tweak questions. Yeah, so like which are you supposed to like make use of, or what are the processes you should use in most cases, because you probably can't use all of them most of the time. So that's one of it. The second one is, when designing dark mode, what's the best approach you should
what designing
advise?
What? Dark mode?
When designing dark mode, yeah, what's the best approach you advise? Should you design it side by side, like when you're designing light mode, design the dark mode screen? Or when you're done with your entire design, you probably duplicate the file and start changing colors. Then the last one is, considering all these design principles you've mentioned, if someone has followed most of them to the best of his ability and you still feel your design doesn't pop, or is still not good enough based on the aesthetics, how can someone improve on that? Like, you followed all the like 90% of the principles you mentioned, and your design still doesn't come out as well as you want it. How can you improve?
Okay, so the first question on processes, I think we talked about it a bit. Start with talking to the users, wireframe what your ideas are. So talk to users, do your research, wireframe, prototype, test with users across every stage of the journey, and test with your clients. The next thing about designing dark mode. The best way to design for dark mode is when you create your color system, right? Once you have a color system, with your color system, you can be able to define, all your light colors, all your dark colors, and how they switch. Dark mode is actually more of an engineering more than design, but you can actually design the way it looks. So if you say that all my whites should convert to black, all my gray 1 should convert to gray 6, where gray 1 is almost white, gray 6 is almost dark. It paints a picture. But the best way I'll tell you is to actually research on dark mode. I could have like a smaller session in the mentorship group on how to design these things, but it's actually very simple. It's just how you think about it. The last question is, I seem to have forgotten now. Cognitive load. You packed so many things in my brain.
Okay, sorry about that. I was like considering all of the principles you mentioned, assuming someone has implemented or someone implements about 90% of them on a daily basis, and you still feel your design doesn't come out as well as you would want it to be. How then can you still improve?
The best way to improve after implementing all of these things and your designs don't still look good, send it to your customer. Maybe your design looks good, but you don't just know it looks good. If you apply all of these things, I'm pretty sure your design works. Most times people expect design to look stylish. If you open the biggest apps in the world, from YouTube to Facebook to Twitter, they are not using very complex fonts. They are using fonts that everybody can read. It's not overly styled. So sometimes these designs look good, but you feel like it's not good enough. But it's looking good already. So what I'll tell you is that it's good. Test your customers and apply their feedback. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot, sir.
I've answered Ayo's question. So I'll go to Olase Inde.
All right, thank you very much, Evans. Thanks a lot. So my question is, when you were starting off in UX design, what are the resources that really helped you? Do you mind sharing with us, especially the newbies like me?
The biggest resource I had access to was Google Search. Google Search is a beautiful platform that allows you to ask any question without being shy or without you feeling like they won't know I don't know this thing. Google Search. I still use it like today. I still use it like right now to search one thing or the other. The truth is that a lot of times you would think that you don't know enough to start. Maybe you do. The fact that you have concentration to actually be here for over an hour talking about UI design and you understand some of these things, it means you know some of these things. But you need to go out there and show that confidence that, listen, I will try, I will start. I know someone on Twitter, I think his name is Howard, and he committed that he's going to post his progress on UI design from when it is not so good to when it becomes best. And to be honest, the fact that he shows up every month to say, this is what I've learned so far, this is what I've done, guys, what do you think? In the next 6 months, if he does it over and over again, when he compares month 1 to month 6, he will realize that he has become better. But the truth is that there's no motivation you will get that will be more than you disciplining yourself and doing that thing you want to do. If you want to become good at UI design, take one UI every week and say, my project is design homepage today. I design homepage in 5 different ways for one simple app, and I would see how to improve it. When I want to know how to design better navigation, I'll Google, best navigation for mobile UI, and you will find results. Best logo placement for mobile app. These are like simple questions you need to ask on Google. Once you can refine how you search for these things, you will get all the resources you need. There are so many. Someone told me they needed resource on videos for UI, and I told them, check on YouTube, because I did, and I saw there are so many UI design classes, so many videos available online. You don't need to pay for a course to feel like now you understand it. There are free resources out there, people that are committed to sharing this knowledge. There are people that are ready to listen to you and tell you this is the best way to go. But as much as possible, there are resources already available online. Do the research. Thank you very much. Uzoma, you're up next.
Okay. Good evening, Vance. Thank you very much for this class. I've really learned a lot. Okay, the question is very simple. I've heard of UI, UX over the years, and I've also heard of product design. So what's really the difference? Is it the same thing? Is it one and the same thing, or are they different roles? To be a product designer or to be a UI, UX designer, are they the same thing or different? I just want that clarification. Thank you.
Okay, so the first thing I would say is UI is part of UX, right? Product design is pretty much the same with UX UI design. A product designer has a bit of UX knowledge, a bit of UI design knowledge, and also a bit of product management knowledge as well. You know, product design is a lot more focused, right, to digital products. The same way UX and UI design is, but the main difference is actually UX and UI, where UX contains everything, including what is in UI, right? And that's why we have this Venn diagram drawn here, that UI is a component of UX. So everything under, and I don't know if you remember the definition we gave. UI is what the user sees. UX is what the user feels. So the fact that you can see this on your screen, that's what you can see, right? You can interact with. You can click this, you can click that, you can click on mute, you can click lower hand, raise hand. That's what you can see. How you feel about clicking those things, you know, is actually user experience. And you would believe and you agree that the way it looks affects the way you feel. Take it as even relationships. The way most people are influenced by the way their significant other looks like. You know, you see someone you like and you like the way they look before you even talk to them. The way they look, their appearance is the UI. The way they make you feel, the way they talk, the way they are helpful to you is the user experience. So you see, they are not entirely the same thing. The way the person looks can influence how you like them, but the way they behave, their character is actually the core UX. So UI is actually part of UX, and they are all pretty much similar to product design. Prince Ajim, sorry, Temida, I'll pick you next, but Prince Ajim, I already asked you to unmute. Yes.
Thank you, Evans, for this session. My question is a follow-up to Juice. That's the lady who asked if UI UX design applies only to websites and apps. So in your experience, does physical prototyping, that is creating physical model of products, fall within the requirements for UI UX and product designers? I ask this because I recently came across a case study which involved making asthma inhalers more acceptable to afflicted children by redesigning the inhaler to feel more like a toy. So is this a unique instance, or is this kind of innovation normally required of UI UX and product designers?
That's actually very interesting. But the truth is that what I find is user experience is one that spans beyond interfaces. So you see, when you say, you know, designing inhalers to feel more like a toy for children, that's more like a user experience thing they are trying to achieve. But it's just that right now, whoever you're hiring cannot be someone who has only designed interfaces all their life. You have to hire someone who understands 3D modeling, for example, or 3D printing, or someone who has built something like a physical product, right? So the requirements are a lot different. Someone who does user interface design may not be able to work effectively for that kind of for that role in designing, you know, inhalers for you know, children. But someone who has a deep level of user experience can leverage the amount of research they do in user experience to be able to find a way to improve, you know, the state of or the kind of products people use for asthma treatment. Bless. Okay, next person is Temidayo. Oh, there are so many questions.
All right.
Here.
Good evening, Evans.
Hi, good evening, Temidayo.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity for this free class. I've been anticipating it for a very long time. All right, so quickly, I'm a graphic designer, and I want to switch to becoming a UI UX designer. So first of all, I want to know, is there any advantage for graphic designer to easily acclimatize themselves with the UI UX design space? That is my number one question. Then number two, you were actually talking about people learning UI UX design online, you know, self-knowledge and all of that. I don't know, but for me, I I don't know, is it more advisable to learn it online? Because sometimes when you are watching some of these YouTube videos, you can't ask questions. Like now, this is a live session, you can ask questions, you can, more of these videos on this course, UI/UX design, most of them are recorded videos and all of the rest. You might not be able to ask questions and all of the rest. So will you advise that people should go on self-knowledge or probably register for a course or something? So I think that's just the two questions I have.
Okay, so the truth is this, right? Right now we've spent so the time is 12:32. We've spent 2 hours 32 minutes on this call, right? For me to do this, I know how much time I had to take out of my schedule to create the slides, to talk about on Twitter, to compose myself, even while doing like NMSC. This morning I had a class. It's still about 12:32 a.m. in the afternoon here, but I had an early morning class, dashed back home in an Uber. This is the reasons why a lot of people don't have the time to teach people online. And you will not really blame them. Everyone is busy. But I feel like, as much as possible, you can still search. Search for that one video. If you read something from someone and you really like the person's thought process about something, write to them. They may not respond, but write to 10 people. They may not respond, but the truth is that the real game is actually how you connect with customers. Do you know, in the past 1 year, I have gotten a lot of feedback on my product by just tweeting about it and asking for feedback from regular people, really. Because the truth, what you want to learn from UI design or from UX design or design generally, is not hidden in the minds of people who are great. It's hidden in how much you listen to the customers. The more you listen to them, you will learn even deeper things that I don't know of, that the next UI expert does not know about, just because you are studying the end user. Because all of us chasing investors and all of that, building amazing products, we will all meet at the customer's feet to beg, use my app and not the other one. So you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And you're already graphic designer, like you understand things like color, contrast, alignment. You understand these things. You're good. I wish I can take more questions, but I feel like we should start. People on Figma may have been tired by now. We need to go there. Let me just allow like 3 more questions quickly. Okay, on Nalaja, I just randomly picked you for a question. Hello. Are you there? Should we move on to the next person?
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, good evening. Thank
Good
you.
evening.
I just have 2 questions real quick. I want to know the career, as in the progress, like the levels, which you can, the highest level you can go to as a UX designer or UI designer. And also, my second question also goes around color. Sometimes they have issues with color, like knowing the best color practice. What's it called? They're trying to know color that really complements each other. You can have issues knowing the right colors to choose. So I just want to know your best idea for colors here.
I try to keep it simple. That's my life practice. Keep it simple. Keep it simple because the more colors you add. See these slides, it's all black and white. I think only 1 page of this slide or 2 pages or 3 have colors in it. But you see how simple it is. It's easy to look at. A lot of times I'll advise you design it first in black and white. Then the best place to add color. But when you start designing with color immediately, you could just design on a tangent and it becomes like so stressful before you get to where you're trying to go to. So try to design first in black and white and then add color gradually. So you don't add too many colors in the beginning and then it now becomes too busy. And as much as possible, check online, research these things. There's Blossom was doing by here. Yes.
So for
Do
the
you have another
first
question?
question, yeah,
What's the first question?
the first question was like for a UI designer, what is the highest
Oh, your career
position?
path. Your career
Yeah,
path, right?
yes.
Oh, career path as a UI designer, you can actually grow in different ways. You can start in UI design and end up learning how to code and transform to become a front-end developer. So you're now someone that knows how to design it and code what you are designing. A UI designer can also become a product manager because at some point you understand how effective user interfaces help companies, and you've talked to clients long enough to know how to translate the ideas into designs. And you can transform to become a product manager that manages other designers, mentoring them, helping them design better interfaces, and communicating the goals of the business to those designers. A UI designer can evolve to become a UI UX designer that moves beyond understanding, the look of an interface to becoming someone that knows the look and understand how the customer thinks and knows how to build something really good. A UI designer can become an entrepreneur. You can actually start to learn people's skills and assemble a team of a developer and any other person you need to be able to build the next product out there. A UI designer can do a lot. You and even as a UI designer, you can work in various industries. You know, almost every company is going to tech. If you realize through this class, we've talked about almost different. We talked about logistics a bit, talked about health a bit, talked about banking a bit. You can be able to work in almost every of these sectors because you now have the choice to say, I love health. How can I help use my UI design knowledge to help the health sector? I want to build the foremost telemedicine startup in Africa, right? And you're building a tool that helps people connect with their doctors remotely in a post-pandemic world, right? So as a UI designer, there's a lot you can do. You can even specialize in teaching people UI design. Maybe you've learned so much, you know so much about this, and you feel like you have a lot to share. You can actually just start creating simple knowledge about it. You can even be that person that is a content creator UI designer, and then you create like short form content that teaches people on different tips on UI design. The world is your oyster. Just choose what you want to do and smash.
All right. Thank you very much.
All the best. Hi, Blossom Ozurumba. This is one of our big clients.
Yeah, hi.
Please
Hi,
ask your
Ivan.
question.
Good
How you
evening.
doing?
I'm
Good
very well, and
evening.
thank you so much for this opportunity. So, I work prominently in an organization that is very, very traditional. When I mean traditional, if you look at the demography and all that, so probably in designing experiences for the organization, we have a lot of people that are sort of stereotyped to believe that the more busy something is or the more colorful it is, then the more acceptable it will be. So when you talk to them about minimalism and all that, they really think it's not. You have a very difficult time trying to preach that keeping it simple is the way to go. So I don't know when someone is in that kind of situation, what do you recommend? Because it really gets frustrating sometimes if you are not able to communicate that keeping it simple is actually the best way to go about in your design and in your experience.
Okay, so for people who don't see the value of design, I try to find what they see value in. Most of them are realists, and they would say things like, I believe in the numbers, right? If I can get them to believe in the numbers, then they are trapped because I would then run a survey and ask customers which of these two things are better. Most people want to see proof to convince them to change their thinking around something. Most times it's our own job to show them that proof. For I remember when I was designing products, I always had a hunch that products that are well designed will need less customer service. It was something in my head. I felt like, as much as possible, keep your product simple. That's how you excel. But for me to prove that, I had to build a product and add all the simplicity I could understand at that time, or how best to simplify these things. And when I did that, the proof was in the fact that this product got over 22,000 customers and as low as less than 100 complaints over email. And when you can control 22,000 customers with less than 100 requests over a year, it shows that, it is actually simple. Most times they need to see that, this has been tested before. A lot of times, if you can be able to give them two designs, simple A/B testing. Here is one design with a minimalist approach. Here is another design with the colorful approach that you like. Let's test and see what the customers like. We run a very quick survey. And if everybody says the colorful one is better, maybe it's better if they are the target audience of that product. I feel like products that are very colorful sort of tend more to kids and social type things for very little children. But when you're trying to design for adults, you want to use more neutral tones and use accents to show action and direction. It's hard, but it's these kind of things. It's over time they get to trust your opinion over these things. Which other person can we take on? Or can we just let's have the quiz. I think we still have we're losing people. We have about 389 people here. Let's have the quiz before we go to Figma, and then we call it a day. So I'll switch now to the quiz. Give me a second. So I'm sharing my screen now. Can you all see my screen? Okay. All right, so we can go. So go to, let me just type this here. Go to Menti. Just follow the instructions on the screen. Yeah, I see people are here. Sweet. Okay, so everyone is here. That's cool. We'll just give another, say, 1 minute for more people to join. The way the quiz works is actually very simple. What you'll be seeing, I'll be showing you 2 different or 3 different interfaces. So you get to choose which interface is the most correct. It's more like this or that, A, B, or C. It's super simple, but one thing I must get you to understand is, the first person to answering fast gives you more points. And you see these instructions. It's really, really simple. You can also use your phone to scan the barcode on your screen so you can get to see the quiz. And like I promised, like the best person in this quiz gets $50. It's something you would enjoy. So are you guys ready? I believe I'm getting responses that you guys are ready. So yes, yes, yes. Let me just get more yeses and we know we are ready. All right, let's start. Okay, so compare these two interfaces. I'll give you guys 3 more seconds to keep looking at this, and I'll ask you which one is more correct, A or B. Let's go. Yeah, so everyone is here. So we'll give like a few more minutes for more people to join. So you have 75 people that are here now. So who else is joining? Join quickly. Once I start, it'll be hard for anyone to join in because you get your points, and so I think everyone is here now. Okay, I think more people are already here now. We can move. So enters to start countdown. Okay, enter fast to get more points. So which UI was correct? 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Oh, so you guys didn't notice, but the UI in the left in A had the delete button in red. You need your delete button to always be in red and not in black, because more people are used to seeing delete in red and not in black. So as much as possible when designing, please keep your UI for delete in red. It helps, that mental model of the person to understand that, it's best when things like delete is red and cancel is in a muted color, like gray. Here's the next one. Compare these two interfaces. I believe you guys have seen it enough. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So that's question 2. Did you answer faster to get more points? So look at your phone. Okay, so 42 people didn't get that one right. 326 people got it right. And the goal there is, what you should have seen is that in A, the button saying continue with email was in full black, because contrast helps you to view designs better. It helps you to know, like we said, color gives a direction what people should click on. When you've entered your email and you're trying to sign up, it's best when you have the button in an active color compared to the muted gray you saw in B. These are the kind of nuances you need to know when you're designing interfaces. Next question. I'll spend some time here because this one has more detail to look at. So imagine you have Tony Stark on your contacts. Which of these, if you want to call phone, which of these interfaces is correct? Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. So that was question 3. And the countdown starts now. Woo! More people got this one. So the trick here is I use 2 different icons for call phone. Remember when I taught you guys that try to use icons that are universally understood or icons people are used to. People prefer to find the call icon that is shaped like the old phones. That's what people are used to seeing for the call icon and not an icon of today's kind of phones, right? So as much as possible, using the call icon, try to use that kind of phone icon because people sort of know that icon much more than any other icon for phone. So here's the next one. Compare these three interfaces. So I will give you a trick. What is different here is alignment. So look at it very critically. Look at the alignment in those three different designs. And this is how you should be looking at design. You should be able to look at it and zoom carefully on your screen and, find that little misalignment. So on this one, try to see the one which is the wrong interface here. A, B, or C. I believe most of the people have gotten it by now. So we move forward. So that was question 4. Answer fast to get more points. Oh, that was, yeah. Okay, that didn't give a response. Okay, and the next one here, so I didn't know that didn't give a response. But let's just move on. Compare these icon sets. So A, B, and C. And see which one is correct. I'll give you some time to decide. Ready? Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready? Okay. So that was question 5. So answer fast to get more points. Yes. B is correct. So in that one, it's important to use field icons. When you're using icons, if you're using one style of icons, use that across. When you're using if you're using line icons, use line icons across. When you're using field icons, use field icons across. It's just for you to know that every icon you're using, use uniform style in your icon design. The next question here is yes, compare these two interfaces. I won't tell you what is different about the both of them. But the work of a UI designer, you need to be able to look at things critically to be able to see spot differences in your UI, because you're looking at UI on behalf of maybe 100,000 people who are going to use your product or who are going to see your website. So you need to be able to look closely at these things to be able to find what is right, what is wrong, what can be improved. Yes, I think you're done with that. And that was question 6. Let's see how many people get that right. Remember to answer fast to get more points. Ooh, people got this one right. So the difference there was that the one on A, the colors were a little lower in contrast compared to B. And it's important for you to have optimal contrast on your design. Except if it's a situation where something is disabled, then you can use it in light gray, because it's disabled. And these are nuances you get to learn as you're doing your UI design. But as much as possible, people will give you feedback oh, it's not very clear. Try to improve your UI design based on that. Let's move on to the next one. Compare these two interfaces. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Are you guys ready? So that was question 7. Answer fast to get more points. I hope everyone gets this one correctly. Oh, people didn't see it. So the correct thing in this one is if you look at the content writing. So one of the tasks of a UI designer is to also read the content on your page. Many people didn't see the difference in two of them, but there were 2 words there spelled wrongly on the B design, while A had every letter spelled correctly. So it gets really tricky. Sometimes you don't get to see some of these mistakes, on a design. So as much as possible, always just have it in mind that, you're looking carefully at the design that has been done so that it's not a customer that is finding the error in the text, but you are finding it early enough before a customer gets to see it. Let's move on to the next one. So compare these 3 interfaces. I'm sure you must have spotted the difference by now. And you will tell me which one is the most correct one. I think we're almost done. I think that just about 2 more questions, and that's the last one. So yes, start the countdown. Which UI was correct? Yeah, cool. People got this one right. Yeah. So the edit icon is usually a pencil. It's not any other icon but a pencil. Once you see edit most times, it's a pencil that is used to represent edit. And these are things that, trust me, you will learn over time, right? Just keep on doing UI design. You'll get to know what icons people use for different kind of things. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Give me a second. Yeah, this one is going to be very hard because it's very subtle difference. Very subtle difference. Okay, so compare these 2 interfaces. The difference is there, but it's very tiny. I believe many people have seen it. And give your response right now. Let's see how many people get this one. Ooh, a lot of people didn't get this one correctly. So in the first design, the button text had a thicker. The button text was thicker compared to it had a thicker thickness like compared to the other one. So when you're designing buttons, try to use like 500 or like medium or semi-bold. Try not to use regular because most times it's difficult to distinguish that this is a button compared to other text. It's always best to use maybe like a semi-bold or a medium or a bold text for your buttons. So that was the trick question there. Both of them looked similar, but it was also slightly thicker compared to the other one. The next question here is yes, compare these 2 interfaces. Yes, the error is there. I hope you guys can find it and in time. Have you guys seen it? Okay. So that was question 10. And that's the last one. So after this one, we get to see the results. So the thing there in that one was actually the spacing. There was more spacing in A because you want to make sure that elements that are not connected to each other have space to show they are distinguished from each other. And this is actually how you design better interfaces. A lot of times spacing is required to show, distinct groups of features. So more often than not, try to ensure, so people are typing the answers in here. Try to ensure, you have space between different elements in your design. So I think this is the final question. Let's see how the leaderboard looks like and who won the quiz. Yeah, so who's the highest? Oluchi Emenyo, who is the highest? Yeah, that's the winner. So Oluchi, send me just DM me with your name so we can work out your $50. I don't know if you prefer it in gift card or in cash, but send your details and through my Twitter DM or here, and you'll get that before the end of today. I hope this was fun. I just hope that you guys are able to, learn something new and see how to apply all this knowledge of UI design into something that. Okay, yes, Sean said she sent him a private message. Yeah, thank you very much, Sean. So I hope this was able to help you understand how to see these different things and see how you can do better with your design. Now we can all move from here to Figma. To be honest, I never knew how complicated this class was going to become. So many things to do. Yeah, sorry, it wasn't fun for people that use glasses, but it's all good. Let's move on to Figma, and on Figma, I wouldn't need to share my screen anymore because the good thing with Figma is that we can all be on Figma, right? We can all be on Figma, and you can see so there's no need for Zoom anymore. So thank you all to everyone who's tuning in from YouTube. The part of Figma is we're not going to stream that on YouTube. We'll just actually we can. So let's see how we can move forward with still streaming this while I design live. All right, thank you very much, guys. You can either stay on Zoom, but I think that you're better off on Figma because you can be able to measure what is being done at different times and see how these designs are actually being translated. But if you have to go now, thank you very much. I mean, we've spent 3 hours, 4 minutes so far, and we can go extra 30 minutes. Can I use Figma on phone? So I'm not sure how Figma works on phone, but you can be able to, I think you can be able to watch the design. Check your email. Okay, yes, someone has just sent the link here, so you can actually join on Figma. All right, thank you very, very much, guys. Let's go to Figma and design a banking app. You won't be able to hear me on Figma. Okay, so I'll keep this on so we can always hear each other. So I will start sharing a new document, which will be my Figma file. Yes. Okay. Okay, welcome to Figma. And I believe everyone, oh my God, everyone is here. So, hey guys, we are here. Oh my God, this is crazy. This is a whole screenshot. I'm keeping a screenshot of this. This is too beautiful. Okay. Let's go to, so if you guys follow me to the next page called resources, you'll find that I've already started creating resources for you guys. So so far here, there are lots of icons here. By the time we are done with this, I think I might need today and tomorrow to be able to curate some feedback from the class and add some more icons here and maybe some extra things that you guys would need. Then we can publish this on Figma as a community file. Maybe by Monday or Tuesday, this will be available, and then you can be able to use these icons on your products. If you can zoom this icon, see that these are actually part of the icons I created sometime last 2 years now. I still use some of them in products I design, and you find that they are very well done. Most of them look like icons you already know before now. But what is important is that, I've done that meticulous work here, so you don't need to do that. And there are some icons like, like QR code, which is not common. I don't think you would have seen a QR code icon common before, and I've created that here for you so you can easily have that. There is icons for like, and also there's this, I optimize legibility on these icons. So for example, there are icons that, and I will show you how these things are created. It's actually not that hard, but it's, very intense work. Things like question mark, things like grid icons. Some of them are just very simple squares and shapes and rectangles, while some of them you have to really calculate. So let's go to page 1. Let me just leave everyone on this left-hand side. Let's try starting something new. So if you're creating a UI, the first thing you want to do is hit A on your screen. When you hit A, it brings out a new frame. It shows you frame, and on the side you can easily select phone, laptop, desktop, different screen sizes. Let's say we are designing for a phone, right? Let's pick the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Once you click on that, it gives you the exact dimensions straight up on your screen. Now, the first thing is, let's say we are designing, I believe you guys can still see my screen, so I can switch out of Figma from time to time and go do some research, right? And we can come back here and we'll just add screenshots of what I've researched. So let's say we are designing a banking tool, right? So bank apps. Let's check like bank dashboard. And this shows you, okay, this is not be the best way. Let's try Dribble. So Dribble is a very good website for inspiration. They have like lots of really, really good designs in there. And you can actually see like what you can build better. So for example, this just caught my eye, right? From here, you can see like this is for a job finder app. You can see the way colors were used very subtly on this design, the way spacing is done, and all of that is done properly here. Now, let's say we are trying to design a banking tool. We would actually be searching for bank. And when you search for bank, you would find all these different designs that have been done by people globally for a bank, right? And you can be able to leverage on them. So for example, this is licensed peer-to-peer banking app, and you just do a screenshot, and this is actually how you gather inspiration for what you're trying to build. So copy and, paste, and this just stays on the side. I actually have to plead you guys to remove your cursor. We can't see what screen. Okay, so if you stay on Figma, you can't see when I share my screen, but I'm also on Zoom sharing what I'm doing. So I'm just picking up inspiration from Dribble for different bank apps to show you how, to go about when you're thinking about designing a new tool. Most times there are people who have done something similar before, and you can leverage on what they've done. So let's even not do all that research. Let's just go into designing something very simple, just so you can understand the tools, because someone said they are beginners here on this class and they may not know how to create these things. So let's start with calling this bank, let's call this bank Banksy, right? Or Bankify. Right? Bankify has a very simple logo that looks like this. Give me a second. So I'll quickly just create a logo for this bank app right now. So bank logos look somewhat like this. So Bankify, small letter B. And you see what I just did here is super simple. You type, there's a T button at the top, click on T. And this is not me teaching you how to create logos, but it's something that you might need to know how to do at some point. And logos are also very, very simple. So I click on this. Next thing I'm going to do is to make sure it's a little tighter, so it has that, very snappy look. Then I'm going to go through different icons to find like an icon that works for a bank. So let's say we pick this icon that means credit card, right? And we take it and we, add it on this page. See, it's already looking like a bank app. Do you see? Like simple things like this sort of helps to, design a very nice tool. We can even, without this, we can actually design something very simple as well. Let's take a circle and give that circle what color? Let's say this bank is blue. And what else do we want to add? B. We use B in here. And B becomes the Bankify logo, right? And we have B in white. Let's take this as our brand, right? For this brand. And we take this now as the logo and we add it to this page, right? So the first thing people want to see is the logo, right? You want to ensure that you're doing a lot of brand recall on a brand like this. So one thing I want to show you guys is how to design with simple math. So on the right of my screen, in fact, I don't know if you can see the same thing I'm seeing, but you can be able to set, if you click on this icon, you see it is 18.54 by 18.54. Try to make your designs use like a very simple grid. I use, 20 or 30 for logos, right? I'm using 30 for logos. The next thing I do is I also ensure that, I use equal amount of spacing around my screen. So I always do this where, I'm making sure this height from the edge of the screen is 20 px. And then there's also another 20 px that is equal from the left of my screen, right? And also another 20 px from this side of my screen. And the reason I'm doing that is to ensure that none of the designs gets to spill out of the frame, just to help with alignment. A lot of time when you're starting out, you want to do things like that to help with alignment, right? So you're doing this, and then these things now form guides, which you now add lines from the edge of your screen to align to each of them. And once you get that right, you can now delete those rectangles you created there. And mind you, there may be a professional way of doing this, but I'm trying to break this down to like a very simple beginner level approach. So see what we get in the end. So we now have like, a very nice alignment for the banking app, right? Or even let's even take the Visi brand I'm working on, because that looks a lot sharper. So let's take this and use this, right? And I'm reducing this to 30px or 20px, right? And aligning it to the top and the middle. Can you see that Figma actually helps you with alignment? Because when you're moving things, it sort of snaps to when it's in the center. So Figma is really, really great at these things. And then the next thing is we have to decide what page we are designing. If this is a login page, this is a login page, what we'll have here is, the first thing we'll have here is sign into your account, right? Now from here, you need to ensure that one of the things I like to get people to understand is how you have different font sizes for different things. I will give you a trick that a set of fonts I've created over time that helps my work, and you can now use that to create multiple different fonts for what you're creating, right? So I'll just give you this, and you can always improve that when you're creating yours. So I'm going to add this here. So you see this font typography, whenever you use it, it will help your work. So here there is like from small, there's very small to medium, extra medium, large, and extra large. You can't be able to copy this out right now because this document is view only. But I would document all of this and release sometime next week so that you guys can have it as a Figma community file. It now becomes like a template, a simple guide for you to do more things. I'm hoping you guys can still hear me, but I'm just going to keep talking. So now from this, the best font to use here, and let's even say we are thinking about designing this login page for desktop and for mobile. It means we'll click A again, and we go to desktop and we select desktop. So now we have desktop by the side and mobile by the side, right? Now on desktop, we're going to align the same 20px from the edge. So we have the same amount of space again from the edge here. So I just realized when you move this, you can actually just do this and always use the math equations, right, for width and height on Figma, because once you can type 20, or type 30, it just gives you the exact number you need instead of you having to, test out different things or just draw it without alignment, because these are the things that help developers to know that, this person has defined proportions for different things. So once you have that, you just align your left and your right borders to fit, then you create space as well from the top and bottom. But here, the next thing I'm trying to put here now is we need to define what the top area of the app is. So imagine if we have space and we say we want the height to be 60. 60 would mean that, you already have 20 up there, 20 in the middle and 20 at the bottom, right? So this 60 now becomes like the whole space for the header, right? And that becomes a space that you can always use anytime. Okay, to see it. Okay, that's a nice tip that Anyanwu shared. So you can always have this, and then for the part that says sign into your account, we can now use these font sizes here. When you click on this, you can use to see what font size it is. So from here, all I need to do now is select the preset of that font size, which is large. And once I set it, you see it just gives an exact size that just works. So sign into your account, and then we add some supporting text saying transfer money and check balance. And we can write even more things here that convinces them why they need to sign in. And this text sometimes is just copywriting that enables users to be able to do better, right? Now you see that what I've done here now is I'm using this font size called text L to power this one, and this transfer money is actually text M, right? Now, because you want to also do alignment, you can click on this and center the alignment on your screen. Click on this and center the alignment. When you get the alignment correct, you see that, it also shows a blue line to show that, it's very well aligned. Now, based on this, I'm going to also use colors to also define, what it should look like on this. So you see here, instead of having it in black, body text is better in a lighter background color, right? Now the next thing here is we should also check the space between each of these guys. So because they are together, I'm going to use a space of 10 to show that it is close to each other. Now I can group these two and use a space of maybe 60 from the logo. So it doesn't seem like it is too far away from the logo, right? And it doesn't seem like it's too near to the logo as well. So it doesn't give that wrong impression that you're trying to connect. If this was like this, it doesn't look good. But like this, it just gives just enough space. The next thing we are designing is a form, right? For entering their email and password to log in. For your forms, try to use about 50 px height. Try to give it a slight radius, say like 5 px radius. Radius is the curves on the edge of your screen. How do I disable all the comments? It's just so many people just dancing around this Figma document. I worry that what I'm live streaming will look so busy. Give me the tip for disabling comments again. Okay, remove your design from, to see without distraction, you can disable all comments by clicking Shift plus C. Shift plus C? No, that didn't work for me. Okay. So that didn't work for me for weird reasons. Okay, so let's just keep going. I think it's also fun. So we have like that border radius, but the next thing now is the fill. We're going to use a very light background for the fill, so that, and this background, let me even bring in a set of colors, because that too, I've also created colors that have worked over the years. So we take these colors and I would give it as a free gift to you guys. So this is my set of colors from white to dark, and my colors for accent, success, and error. So, and these are the colors used in this design system to, create more things. So after doing this, next thing is to ask for first name. So, or rather email address. If you're trying to log into the app, you'll be asking for email address. So you type enter email address. Now with this, try to also match this with, try to make sure in your design you don't have more than 4 or 5 font sizes on your document, so it's not confusing. So you see, for this, I'll match the font size here with the font size of transfer money and check balance. But now the amount of opacity that it has will show that this is a placeholder and not content that has been entered already. So here I'm going to use like a grade 3, which is a little lighter, because you want people to know that you've not entered anything. But once they've entered content, then you now use like black or white, depending on dark and light mode. And here you want to have enter email address. Now email address there is now the label of that, is the label of that field, right? Now you also want to give enough space from the top. An email address can now be smaller because it's not as important as the fact that you want them to actually enter their email. Now if you could disable everyone's cursor from your screen, you'll see how this actually does look. If I should click presentation now, those are on Figma, on Zoom will see how this tool already looks very clean, just because we've taken out a few things. I mean, there's still more work to be done, but you see it's already matching that kind of aesthetics that is required for an app today. So I would go back to Figma and then make sure your labels are very clear. So this is what we're using for labels. We're using like a grade 4 for labels. And the next thing, after you do this, you group and you go down to create another one. And then you can now use a defined space between two of them. So here, I'm going to use 20px as a space between these two layouts. And the next thing we're entering here is password. Do you guys see how, I copied an existing layout for forms and used for the second layout? Disable cursors, Control plus alternate plus. Disable comments, Shift plus C. So it's not just working on Apple devices, Shift and C. I can still see, I can see you guys cursors still moving around, so it doesn't really disable your cursors. I think it's fine, your cursors are showing. On password, so you enter password here. Now, it's important to note that if the person had entered their email address already, it should look like this. it should now be in black, right? Because it shows that I have entered information, right? And now the next thing now is how you design your buttons. So your buttons should make, if you're using 50px height for the labels, try to also use the same amount of height for the buttons. These are unsaid rules, but it actually helps a lot in designing something that is very neat. The same way if you zoom this clearly, you see that we have 5px, and you can go to the inspect route in what we are designing. You will see that it's already creating codes for different things, right? Even things like width of the, so I must mention that, when you're designing for screens on mobile, try to know what is the total device width, right? Different mobile devices have different sizes. So the fact that we're using 20px now from the edge means that since the width of this iPhone 13 is 428, the width of our buttons will automatically become 428 minus 20 minus 20, which is the 20 on the left and 20 on the right. This is a newer way of designing UI that is actually a lot simpler to work with because you're working with different screen sizes. Grids are great, but I find that more people are leaning towards using simple maths in designing their code or designing their interfaces, that it makes it a lot easier for you to just start with. So essentially, you just know that, once you know that the width you're working with is 428px, that helps you design for any other phone. So whatever phone width, it will then become phone width, it will become width minus 20 on the left, minus 20 on the right. So that way, whatever it is, your design automatically just fits in. On this case, it will be 428 minus 20 minus 20, which is 388. So essentially, this button automatically becomes 388. And then remember that for your buttons, always have it in like clear accent colors. For this one, you can actually use straight on black for the buttons and make sure it is having the highest contrast. So it directs the users on what to do. So here you'll be getting create account here. So this will be create account. Always check how the layers are working on your design. Now remember that I mentioned how your design should always have more thickness when it comes to buttons. So here when you have create account and you put that in the center, also try to make sure that the text you're using there is in medium or semi-bold. So it's easier for users to know that this is an action button. Now, remember we put 20px space between these two fields. You want to make sure that the space between this guy and this one is about maybe 40. So it shows that the fields are together as a group. And then this create account is now separate from that. So let's go again to preview so you can see what this looks like. So see what it looks like here. The only error right now is that this the button here doesn't have the border radius of the other two guys. So you go back and then you improve that. You just add border radius of 5 that matches that consistency you've created over time. I just realized how I'm already losing strength. I've been talking for like almost 4 hours now. So I would move to taking an existing UI. We may have to do this live design session. We may have to do another time this same live design session because I didn't budget for having so many people's custom moving around, because I feel like not a lot of people are able to learn with this. So what I want to do is I'll take a complex interface from the product I'm building and show you guys, what the thinking that went behind it. And after that, I think I'll spend the next 1 week to have some of these templates, things like typography choices and the choice of color. I see you guys like the choice of color here, right? I'll take these things and prepare a document alongside the fonts. We can now use that as a almost like a starter pack to design any application you want to design. So I'll copy an interface from the existing product to show you how, you know, interfaces should work. So take a look at this. So these are, come down here, everyone. So these are two interfaces, you know, from the app being created, right? And I would explain what you can do with that. So right now, the way, oh gosh, you guys have set to drag things. So the way this works, you can see from here, we have a defined back button. You can see that there's a height of 60 px for everything at the top, right? The back icon, remember I mentioned that you should leave enough space around the icon so that you can be able to tap back. So beyond, when users want to tap on back in this area, it's not just the icon they'll be clicking on. They'll be clicking on every single thing around every single thing in that square is what they will click on. The same thing with this guy, you know, there is a larger space around it that is clickable, and then there's a publish button that has a larger space around it clickable. Mind you, some of the rules I've told you, you need to be able to be very good at it before you can be able to change or break those rules, right? There are times when design companies break these rules, but you know, it comes from an understanding of these rules in the first place. Now, this is me showing you like a sample editor for this website design tool, right? And the goal here is that when people are designing websites on their phone, they don't have space for dragging and dropping anything. So we can design more intelligent interface by allowing them click on plus, like in the case below here. When you click on plus, it opens up and you can slide through different functionality and add it right in the middle there. So that way everybody's website will have a header. Then you can add anything in between the header and this section, and add something in between this section and the next section. So it sort of just simplifies the whole process, you know. And then there is this, whenever you click on any of these icons, any of these blocks on the website, what will eventually happen is something that looks like this. I'll show you a different page right now. Give me a second. I'm almost there. So when you click on, let's say you clicked on the header component, right? This header right here. Let me show you what happens when you click on that. It shows you this. This is what you get to see. So when you click on this header, this is what happens. You see this page. So it shows you content and style. Under content, it's asking you your logo. Is it a text or an image? If you say your logo is an image, it then shows you where you can add the light logo for light mode and the logo for dark mode. Now, all the menu that is in here are all stacked under menu. But you see on mobile devices, it's actually closing the hamburger. And then there's a button here that when you open the hamburger, you get to see that. And then the fact that whatever you're interacting with here, there's a saved icon telling you saved, which is something that is important for today's interfaces. Always try to like check comments 70. Optional way to disable cursors. Okay. Yeah, but let's just keep moving. We are rounding up. This is like the last part of this class, and I didn't expect that we have so many people still here. Even until now, we have more than 550 people still on the class. So beyond this, there is also another page I want to show you that can guide how you design. So yeah, give me a second. Okay. Okay, so something else we're trying to do with user experience is this, right? After clicking on content and you're done with the content, you click on style. And style will allow you to view different layouts of heading, and you can switch it from being box layout or a full layout. You can align the text, and all of this here. The header here is referring to, sorry, this is for hero right now. This is actually referring to this section of the website, right? You know, you can increase the size from like medium to large to small, and the whole goal here is to take something complex and create very simple controls for it, you know. And once you can do that, you are designing an application. You know, once you know how to take something that is complex and simplify it to the easiest way possible, a product is being made. You know, let me show you what on that page that shows how that looks like when you translate to desktop. So on desktop devices, here is what you get. So you see how on mobile phones, you know, you can see a very streamlined mobile view. On desktop, what you get to see is almost similar to the UI that I'm using on my slides. You know, that's the kind of consistency I'm trying to build with the brand. What we have here is, you know, it's showing you your site name at the top. It's showing you, so you see on mobile, we streamlined and reduced everything to this options icon. So you can click here to see more. So essentially, when you click on those 3 dots on mobile, what you'll be seeing is something like this. Give me a second. I would be there right now. So when you click on this icon here, what you get to see is something similar to this. You get to see this. So compare this now to what you're seeing on desktop, and you see that you have undo and redo all come out on desktop, because on desktop you have more space, but on mobile you don't have enough space, right? So you're trying to make very simple controls that, you know, is easy to work with, right? Next is on desktop, we want to show them the full experience of the website. So you're building a website, but right on your phone, you can build on your phone and see it on your phone. But when you're on desktop, you're seeing the desktop experience, and you can actually switch to the mobile experience as well. Now you see how, you know, the same way the accordion plus opens up for you to add more stuff in the middle, the same way it works from desktops down to mobile devices. But here, instead of when you click on any of these things, it shows you a new page like on mobile, it's showing you that page as a sidebar on desktop. So that way, it's almost like very streamlined design. And this thing happens over time. If you practice design long enough, you start to find similarities between desktops and mobile devices. You know, and gradually you get to design apps that are really, really, really user-friendly. But all the work you see here, you know, it's been a year of doing all of this. So, you know, sometimes you may think that it's happened so fast and you know what to do and you design immediately. Some of these things, it takes a long time for you to be able to decide how best to go, how best to improve your design, and where to take your design to next. On that note, I would go back to Figma on Zoom and see if we can take like 3 more questions and wrap up the whole class. Thank you for staying tuned all this time, and I believe we've learned a lot so far. So are there questions here? So someone says I don't have Figma. So guys, you can come back to Zoom and ask like just 5 more questions, just so we can be able to wrap up this class. Yes, so Eniola just asked about the style guide. So I think I may need to simplify that style guide, and I would have it ready by this time next weekend. UI resources I use. So a lot of the UI resources, some of them were created, some of them were out of experience of different UI resources I've found over time. Someone asked for duplicate elements. So right now on this file, you don't have the opportunity to duplicate because you have view only access on Figma. But when you create your own document, you'll be able to have access to duplicate elements. You would love to speak. Do you design for desktop mobile first? Yes, I do mobile first. So for this app, I actually designed. I designed on mobile for months before I then designed for desktop. You know, is the Google course worth it? Is it worth getting a certificate? I would say yes, because Google is a strong name and you can be able to use that to show that you have like real experience. However, what is important is for you to, actually have working experience of these things. That's like way more important over any other thing. How do you design for future interfaces, the metaverse? I don't know a lot about the metaverse, but I feel like whatever interfaces you're designing, when you get there, you need to design for the end users. You need to make it very simple. What I know is that the metaverse will still have images on it. It will still have alignment on it. It will still have the use of color, and those things are not going anywhere. Whatever you're designing, you will still need to improve that interface to suit the audience. I would like to explain how you calculate PX when designing. I calculate PX based on the grids, based on spacing, based on how I want the alignment to look like. And you can ask these other questions. What's the concept of using auto layout? Auto layout is great. It's a relatively new feature on Figma. It's been there for maybe a year now. If you use that, you can actually save time. And notice your design for VZ is clean without documentation. How does your developer understand the flow? I talk to my developer. I spend an average of 30 minutes to 1 hour almost every 2 days on a phone call, because I believe collaboration is the best way to improve any design. Can we have a class on typography? Yes, so typography scale, I did the research for that like 3 months ago, and yeah, it's possible. I can share some resources with you. Someone asked for mentorship. Yeah, I think I'm going to send links. So these slides from the class, I'm thinking they should be monetized because, yes, I intended to give my time for free. However, I've spent in trying to put this class together. Plus, I'm actually very drained right now. I haven't had breakfast and it's exhausting. So I'll send you guys like, I think it's very, very cost effective as well. And if you're looking for like a design mentorship for a year, a lot of times companies reach out to me to either help them recruit designers or help them like improve their design processes. And I feel like I can be able to help people become better in their design careers and even place them in companies that pays them well. And for me to offer that, I feel like it should be a paid mentorship opportunity. And I will share like resource on how to get into that paid mentorship opportunity. The next thing here is you make use of rectangle a lot in your design. So the biggest designs you see out there are full of rectangles, circles, and squares. It's actually very, very simple. What other question here? Observe you. Okay, rectangles. Using your site. Why do you place the publish button before the presentation? Looking at the layout of non-field. Why do you place the publish icon before the presentation? I'm not sure what the question is. So there are one thing I want you to understand is that when it comes to UI design, is always improving. UI design is always improving. Small designs that I have shown you here, if you get more information or you get new research, you can actually improve those things. None of these things are, set in stone. It is your originality. Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Obianuju. How do you design for multiple screen sizes? So design for multiple screen sizes, I think you should try to understand desktop. What should things look like on desktop and what should it look like on mobile devices? Try to group all your mobile as mobile devices and group, so you can create 3 groups: desktop, tablet, mobile. If you have those 3 different groups, you can be able to design for all the mobiles in a certain layout, right? And design for desktops in a certain layout, and for tablets in a particular layout. And I believe that it's hard to show every single thing, I can't combine 10 years of experience on a 3-hour class, but I feel like, this can inspire someone to actually start. Yes, you can use any app to do UI. When I started out, I was in, I've even used Apple Keynote, which is like their PowerPoint to design UI. You can use any app to design UI. But Figma is the best app for developer collaboration because developers, just like the way your cursors are moving around this Figma document, a developer can move their cursor around and see the size and different things that you took note of when you designed. The fact they can drag something, it shows them the height, the width. That's why people use Figma a lot. Will you redo this particular practical? I got lost. I understand. It can be exhausting, but you'll be fine. There is I'm also trying to, I told you guys I'm trying to have this small mentorship community, and I think that's like the best way to help because people reach out to me on my DMs to help them with with UI design or help them and direct them. And I feel like, if I have like a small class of maybe 30 people, I can be able to mentor them for a year and say, what, by this time next year, they are really good at UI design or UX design, So I will send that email to everyone. And if you're looking to sign up for that mentorship program, you should. If you want a personal 1-hour session, I can take a look at your product and see how we can discuss it and improve it. Thank you so much for being here today, and I hope you get the best of your career and love what you do. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. All right. Yeah. Jesus. Okay. Bye-bye, guys. So yeah, I'll just do we can turn on our videos for selfies, but I can do like one large screenshot. Thank you so much, Sheon. Thank you so much for today. Really appreciate
You're welcome, Evans. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for being patient, and thank you for following with everything here. I know this might not be 100% of what we wanted, but so far, the knowledge has been great, and I just want us to have this at the back of our mind. You have to keep researching. You have to keep searching for what you want. University of YouTube, University of Google, they are those resources. So I'm a cloud security engineer, and every day I don't even know what I want to do. So sometimes some issues, I don't know how to solve them. Some issues, I know how to solve them, but I just keep searching, keep searching, keep searching. So thank you, everyone, once again.
Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye. My voice has gone. Oh my gosh. Okay, bye.